We judge on breathlessness because I was pretty impressed. You were breathing just a little bit heavy, but no one would have known that you'd done a sprint. Right, we'll just maybe give them a minute before we open the meeting. Thanks for that, Mara.
Have you got the live stream on?
Yes, that's
Because Tom's not on. Tom asked me if he was on. I was like,
that's right.
Yeah, Tom's on with you.
Great, thank you. Okay, welcome to the Strategy and Policy Committee meeting for Tuesday the 17th of March 2026. This is the first meeting of this committee for this triennium. And so that said, I'd just like to reiterate just the processes that I would like the meetings to run under. So questions and comments please to come through the chair, so that we can keep things running in a timely manner. Okay, so welcome to all the new members. Right, health and safety in the event of an emergency. If you could please exit out the door on my left or the doors that most of you came in through, and we'll assemble in the car park next to the St John's building. We have a full collection of members today, so we have no apologies that I'm aware of. Are there any councillors with conflict of interest declarations? The items on today's agenda. Fantastic. We do have a recording device, and as part of that process we are being live streamed. Is there any announced urgent business? Fantastic. Okay, we do have a fairly packed agenda today, and we will take the time that we need through that, but we ideally we would love to be finished by 2 p.m. However, we will make sure that we give it the justice that it needs. So welcome along to Kim, and welcome also to Lexi and Zinnia, who are here from the Youth Council to present to us on the submission on the speed limit change for the southern end of Amberley. So you'll find that on page 5 of your agenda. Thanks, Kimberly, and lovely to have you here, Zinnia and Lexi.
Hello, my name is Kim, Youth Development Officer here at the Honolulu District Council. Alongside me I've got Lexi and Zinnia, who are both on the Youth Council as well, and they sit on the road safety portfolio. I take this report as being read and hope that you all managed to have a read of the submission that the Youth Council has submitted. We've come today to seek ratification from Strategy and Policy Committee on the Honolulu Youth Council submission on the Canterbury Highway Speed Management Consultation supporting the proposed speed reduction south of Amberley. I'll now pass to Lexi and Zinnia, who will speak, and then we're happy to take questions and comments.
Okay, my name is Lexi and this is Zinnia. This is our second year on the Youth Council, and we also run a SAD group, which is Students Against Dangerous Driving in our school. I think it is amazing we could put together this submission as a youth council and have our voices heard, since it will impact us in the future. I have my restricted license, and so I am still learning and gaining confidence on the road. So I feel passionate about making our roads a safer place for everyone and help learners feel more confident. We also both have younger brothers who will be on the road in the next few years. So we are advocating for future generations like them, so it is easier and safer for them down the track. So we would really love for strategy and policy to ratify our submission, formally recognising our youth voice.
This is important to me because I am still a learner driver who is yet to develop the skills that you need on the road. As someone who lives in Amberley, these roads would be the ones that I practice on, as well as the other youth who live in this township and the others as well. These roads can be scary for learners and restricted drivers alike. With a lower speed, it would help youth gain their confidence on the road while making it safer for everyone else. We are happy to take any questions or comments.
Oh, thank you, Lexi, and thank you, Zoe, for your words. Are there any questions or comments from councillors? Thank you, Brett.
I've got more of a comment than a question. My daughter's just gone through the program here at the council to gain her licence. She's on her restricted at the moment. And I think it's a wonderful submission that you've done. And what I say to my daughter is that a lot of the time she'll find that drivers will be getting frustrated at her as a new driver. And the irony is that you as newer drivers are very conversant with all the rules and you're applying them. And so other more complacent older drivers find that frustrating. So I think having a submission from newer drivers is extremely relevant. I think it's really well put together. And that's really what I wanted to say. It's really well put together.
Right, thanks for that, Brett.
Cheers.
Oh, Chris.
Madam Chair, through the chair. I read your submission. Well done, guys. Good piece of work. Thank you for that. You make me very proud that I'm associated with you in the Youth Council. Just a quick question. I see you took into account the business issues along that strip of land. What's your thoughts on that? Because I'm in full support of your submission. But could you did have a look at those and consider how businesses will be affected by that? I think in a positive way.
Well, I think having this lower speed limit just makes it easy, like have easier access to businesses and stuff. Like sometimes turning in on a busy road at like a higher speed, it can be really stressful. So I think these lower speed limits will make it easier and more accessible.
I'll put a supplementary through the chair if I may. Do you think we should take that 50k right the back out to where the 80 starts today? That's the impression I'm getting. Yeah, okay, that's cool. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Right, thanks for that, councillor. Any other questions or comments?
If I may, I'd like to speak in support, like Brett and Chris have just identified. I think it's just a wonderful opportunity for young people in our community to put a voice to a reasoned and sound process. And I really hope that your words and our words in this submission process are heard, and that we get the action that we are seeking through this. So congratulations and thank you for picking up the mantle to put this together.
Thank you, Mara. And just from my point of view, look, actually Councillor Carthy has said it, you know, I'm very proud to be associated with the Youth Council as well, and I would support everything that's been said by Councillor Jones and Mari in regards to first of all the quality of the submission and how fantastic and important it is that we actually do, you know, support the words and the thoughts of our younger generation, and that's what you're here for today. So thank you so much for your work, and yeah, much appreciated. I think it's a great way to have your voice. So with that, then do I have someone of a mind to potentially look at the officer recommendation to ratify the submission of the Haranui Youth Council? Thank you, Councillor Carthy. Someone to second. Thanks, Councillor Scarlett. Any further comments, discussion, or anyone wishing to speak for or against? In that case, I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Any abstentions? Then that is carried unanimously. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy school days to come in and present this submission as well. We really appreciate it. Keep up the great work. We look forward to seeing you next week back around the table.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kim. Thank you. Triple safe. Wonderful. Right, moving it please to page 11, the public places bylaw. And we're looking to endorse the operational policy and guidance and the explanatory note. Welcome to the table, Stephanie. It's lovely to have you here. Stephanie, do you know everybody around the table? Yep, great. Just making sure. Probably should have done that with the youth councillors. But anyway, welcome. Look, I'm just going to throw straight over to you. You to take us through this report.
Okay, so I'm here to seek endorsement of the operational policy and guidance and an additional explanatory note to the public places bylaw. You recall that the public places bylaw recently underwent a 10-year review. It got approved at council in December, and then it came into force on the 13th of February, and it will be in for another 10 years. As part of that review, we signalled that we were going to develop operational policy and guidance to sit alongside the bylaw. That the operational policy and guidance is to aid understanding and implementation of the bylaw. It needs to be approved by council. So as I said, I'm seeking endorsement today, and then I'll take it to council in 2 weeks' time for full approval. The operational policy and guidance, in terms of what it contains, there were some things in there that used to sit in the previous bylaw, that was a 2014 version, and we signalled in the consultation what was being pulled out and put in the guidance. Some of it was quite detailed information, such as types of commercial activities, information about mobile tracking shops. We've also developed further information around on-street dining for cafes and restaurants, and we had discussed that some of these issues a long time ago now, November 2024 at this committee, which some of you would have been involved in. We've also put, we haven't actually called them FAQs, but that kind of information that our compliance and roading team gets asked a lot about this bylaw. So things like busking, fundraising, roadside raising, so we've added that information in, just in plain English, so it's easily accessible for people. The additional explanatory note, while I was doing the final edit of the bylaw to get it on the website in February, I realised that the bylaw would probably benefit from an additional explanatory note. So explanatory notes, they're not actually part of the text or the content, but they're there to just provide some information or direct you elsewhere to where you need to go. So we have a section in the bylaw about permitted commercial activities. One of those clauses allows us to consider things that can be undertaken on the premises of council-owned facilities. But we just wanted to be clear that most council-owned facilities are actually on reserved land, and therefore this bylaw is not actually applicable. So if someone wants to hire a hall for an event or something, this isn't actually a thing I need to be looking at. So the explanatory note would just easily identify that for people and direct them elsewhere, basically, so they don't have to spend time trawling through this bylaw. And the information I've also put it in the operational guidance. So I'm seeking that additional information as about, as I said, it's not part of the bylaw itself. In terms of legal, they said that's fine to put in. I do have to do a public notice saying that we've basically done a minor amendment to the bylaw, so I will do that after it's been approved to council. In terms of delegations, as I said, the council has delegation to approve the operational policy and guidance, and that's come in under the bylaw. So yeah, I'm seeking the endorsement of this to then take it to council and have to take any questions.
Great. Thank you for that thorough commentary, Stephanie. So with that, I think I'll just, rather than go through page by page, because I'm taking that, we've all come prepared and are well read on the operational policy and guidance included here. Are there any questions of clarification in regards to what's been presented? Thank you, Mara.
Oh, thank you. Just a couple of wee questions. So if I may, just 2 or 3 in a row. Will these documents be placed on our website, or are they internal for officers to reflect on, to advise and give guidance on?
Okay, through the chair. This is public facing, it will be on our website.
Yeah.
I should have also said it's with our comms team at the moment to add pictures to make it look nicer.
Yeah.
This is just the content
Yeah.
we're looking at here to approve. So this is, yes, internal and external facing, but it'll be helpful for both teams.
Yeah.
There is some further information that our compliance team holds just for kind of internal, how they look at things, but this particular one is external facing, will be on the website.
Can I just ask, on page 13, those dates, July, November 2024, are they correct? Or are they, should it be 2025? I'm just
No, that was 2024, it started 18 months ago.
Did it? Okay, that's cool, that's fine, I'm cool with that. Thank you. And then my final question is, if I may, here somewhere. Oh, there's just reference in these documents to ward committees.
Yes.
Now, we need to probably delete those because we no longer have a ward committee as such. We've got community committees with the, I'll call it Rui and blah blah, Mary and whatever. I think that ward committee reference, and it's there a few times, it probably should be deleted in preference to community board and community committees.
Seems appropriate.
Yes, I can do that. Originally, it only said community board, so it actually only technically applied to Pemna, but we wanted to make sure it was clear that wherever in the district it was, it could be considered at local level is what we were.
Yeah, so I think,
So community.
yeah, thank you. But other than that, looks great, thank you. I'm happy.
Thanks, Dave.
Page 26, roadside grazing and fencing. So the criteria from here, does that come from above, commercial standards, or, because I don't think I've seen any roadside fencing in the whole of the district that would be compliant to any of these standards, and how and who's going to pay for monitoring and compliance and making this happen. If you drive around the district, you won't see any of that, a lot of that happening. For example, electrified warning signs, only plastic stakes. So are the two main ones. So this needs to be well communicated, and I don't know how you're going to enforce it. What's the plan?
Through the chair. So all of those were there in the previous bylaw. The only one we actually added in there was the flexible plastic or frangible material, and that's for road safety reasons. So rather than a metal mortar, it's, if someone hits it, it actually ends. That was added in. All the rest was in the previous versions of the
So
bylaw.
supplementary through the chair, we've never enforced it.
So this section through the chair is compliance is done by our roading team. So if there was an issue, they would need to falls under the operational.
Thanks, Hannah. She's something to add.
Yeah, like most of our enforcement, we don't go out looking for problems. We don't go out nitpicking on fine detail. What happens is if somebody raises an issue with us regarding somebody not compliant, we go and have a look and say, is it reasonably compliant? And if it's reasonable, it's fine. I mean, we could have council wanted us to take out, but generally our line on enforcement compliance is that we take a relatively soft approach to things. But if you wanted us to increase it, we could increase it.
I guess my assumption would be that if this is the operational guidance, then this would guide the officers into exactly how to approach anything that wasn't compliant. It's pretty clearly there. Judith, you've got something to add?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I guess what I was going to say, by having this, it means that if there is an issue, so if there is someone that is using roadside grazing in an unsafe way, we actually have some mechanism to have a conversation with them. So it's more, as a further to what Hamish has said, there's more of a backstop so that we've got something if there's an issue, but don't go out looking for things.
Just one more thing is our compliance powers under this bylaw needs to be appropriate and proportionate to the issue. Just generally that's the general power that they have.
As would be the case with most bylaws.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, I guess my question was sort of along similar lines. The sandwich boards at shops, I see it's limited to one sandwich board per business premise. Most dairies, I'm sure, don't fit within that, and I'm sure a lot of them haven't actually got it's not a consent, but a permission to have more than, and as I say, this is more to say, if somebody complains about it, then you can go and say, well, actually, this is the rules, as opposed to actually going out and looking for people that are non-compliant.
Yeah, through Madam Chair, yes, we will often get complaints about people with disabilities or prams, pushchairs. So if we've got sandwich board signs, clothing racks blocking the footpath, then we've got a mechanism, we've got some rules where we can go back. And so again, it's to deal with situations where they're causing a hazard. And sometimes we've had them where if it's particularly windy and there's a lot of them, they take off. A lady was quite seriously injured and then springs by one of these things blowing. So yeah.
Thanks, Rob. Okay, thank you.
Through the chair, just going back to the commercial activities and council-owned facilities, not reserves. Is when a consent's applied for and it is endorsed for a say event, there's no crossover on this piece of legislation. Oh, sorry, it's not legislation, it's bylaw.
So you're talking about maybe.
Let's just say there's a concert down at some paddock somewhere, just for this discussion. And is there any crossover event in this particular point of the bylaw that has reflection on it?
Possibly yes, because this basically includes all road reserve and public places. So I think, say, if there were crowds associated with that had to be managed, we could use, and I bring you back to the objectives as protect public safety. This is what we would use for that. In that instance, there'd probably be road management requirements as well. I would think that would have to feed into that. But yes, we could use this if someone was causing a nuisance in relation. Yeah.
Through the chair, supplementary. So in a consent application, obviously we put in a traffic management plan. It's pretty standard these days, isn't it? The expectation. So you'd have your traffic management plan. I'm just trying to understand because I know certain persons will ask me this. So we have traffic management plans, all on private land, parking's on private land. Would there be any possible crossover? Just so that I can answer them when they ask me.
If there was activity on public land,
yes. Anything outside the fence would be appropriate.
If it's private, this is not.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. And it is bylaws are technically legislation. They are laws at the local level.
I get that.
Yeah. Just in terms of the.
So one of those linguistically messaging around.
Right, thanks for that.
Thank you.
Right, any further questions or comments? Okay, so this has been quite a thorough process up to this date, and so keeping in mind that we're looking for endorsement, and so this will then there'll be another look at this by full council at the March meeting should we endorse it. So is there anyone of a mind who is ready to consider the officer recommendation to endorse the operational policy and guidance? So Chris, are you happy with that recommendation as it's written on page 11?
Yes.
Okay, so to consider and endorse the operational policy and guidance that will accompany the public places bylaw 2026, and to consider and endorse the inclusion of the additional explanatory note in the public places bylaw.
Sorry, just through the chair, do we need to include that minor amendment?
Yeah, with the minor amendment for the community boards and community committees. Anything further?
Sorry.
Go for it, Brett.
Just through the chair, could I just ask in relation to page 26, on road disputes, it's totally separate from burn offs, and what's required for just a general burn off? Is there any permission that's sought from landowner for
Through the chair, so on private land you're talking about, that would be managed by them. This is different because it's the road and we control that. Yeah, and I have that in there just so it's kind of clear for people. We would go and consult firms anyway. check what fire season. We did have some discussion about this previously. We did think about taking this out, but there might be some situations in remote parts and it might be appropriate to say burn pile on the road reserve where it's actually, that's why that's in there. Yeah, private is.
It's good to traverse that. Okay, so I'm looking to see if there is somebody who's willing to second that recommendation. Thank you, Mari. Is there any further discussion or anyone who would like to speak for or against that recommendation? Okay, then with that, I will put that. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Abstentions? Carried unanimously again. Thank you very much, Stephanie. And as I said, it will now proceed to the 31st of March council meeting with our endorsement, and other councillors will have a chance to ask any further questions. Thank you. Right, page 27, item 2.3, the rural and urban addressing policy. Welcome, Helga. Helga, you've met everybody around the table, I think.
So, yes.
Great, fantastic. So I'm just going to throw this straight over to you then to take us through this decision item.
Great, thanks. So this report seeking the adoption of the revised rural and urban addressing policy. I was requested to amend it to include changes to the delegations, and as part of that process it was suggested I talk to staff that administer the policy, and they came back with a number of changes that they thought would be useful, in addition to some correspondence that we received from Lynn's back in 2020, which had also suggested changes. So I've made amendments that are shown in red in Appendix 1. That also includes, previously there was a separate addendum to the policy, so I've incorporated that into the actual policy document now. So the amendments are generally in terms of changing the terminology to be more in line with the standard, New Zealand standard for rural and urban addressing. And also the change incorporates the changes suggested by staff and Lynn's officers in the addendum. So some things have been deleted, which some sections, I think they were repetitive or they weren't particularly useful. Some areas have been cut and pasted into different sections, so it's more user-friendly, I think. And there's also a clean copy at the back. It's got a bit messy.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
All the changes.
Thank you. Okay, can I ask a question or look for a clarification actually? On page, first of all, thank you for the work, because I can see that this one has taken a lot of time and changes and ins and outs, and in my opinion it is reading very, very well and much better than the previous version. But if I can take you to page 38, so under 3.3 there is some additions there in regards to giving recognition to tangata whenua and the choice of names in Te Reo Māori and the consultation required with that. Then down below in 3.4, in the bullet points there in regards to how things are spelt. So there's a statement there that says be spelt with characters from the standard alphabet. And I just wondered if we needed some statement or clarity there in regards to the use of macrons, if we're including names of Māori that are derived from the Māori alphabet, because that probably wouldn't be considered standard alphabet.
So excuse me, you'd like me to update that to include possibly the Māori alphabet?
Yeah, I think, I mean, I'm open to the room, but I think they're spelled with characters from the standard I'm not quite sure, from the standard alphabet or the Māori alphabet, because when we say standard alphabet, do we need to speak, the standard English alphabet is quite different to the Māori alphabet, because a word that is in Māori that has a vowel sound without a macron and with a macron, there are very, very, very different meanings for words just with that tiny change. So I think we need to acknowledge that macrons are appropriate. But I might.
Through the chair, obviously, dealing with a lot of Maori and iwi throughout the country in my profession. I understand what you're trying to say, Chair, and it does make sense. But generally speaking, when Te Reo was drafted at Cambridge University back in the day, they did operate accordingly with the what's better known for the English, let's just call it the English dictionary, the English alphabet for now. To abbreviate, it was later on in the second reign of discussions over Te Reo's interpretation and alphabetically that they realised that they had to do the stuff that you're referring to, and it was drafted in about the Fourth Amendment at the time, or Fourth or Fifth Amendment of that document at the time. I would say it's not a big thing for us to concern ourselves about, but I think putting it in just to cover ourselves would be a sensible thing for years to come. You know?
Yeah, thank you for that. I think it is really important that we do include it, because the meaning of words changes dramatically without a macron.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sorry for my negative knowledge, but can we get ourselves into trouble by inserting a macron when there shouldn't be a macron on any words that might be included as a road name? You know, by include, you know, just making sure that we are not creating more of an onerous. So I just want to know whether are we making it clearer or not.
Yeah, I considered that, but it felt to me like having that phrase in there under 3.3, which says if a name is chosen in Te Reo Māori, then local rūnanga must be consulted. And so from my point of view, that process that has to happen for a Māori name would ensure that we had the correct spelling. But Hamish, you've got something to add?
So firstly, there isn't actually a standard English alphabet legally defined in New Zealand, or a standard Māori alphabet. So Waikato Tainui, for example, always use double vowels
instead of a macron.
So there's differences in the way that it's done. But there's no technical reason why macrons can't be incorporated into road signs. So I suggest that you just ask officers to go away and revise that particular portion, and we'll come up with something, because this, once again, we'll be going back to council on it. So we can come up with something that's a bit more precise in the interim.
Yeah, look, I'd be completely happy with that. Yeah, because that will allow officers to have a think about that wording around standard alphabet.
Yeah.
It's not going to council.
It's not going to council.
Oh, oh no, this one isn't.
I think we just need a little bit of time to come up with something rather than try and wordsmith it here.
I agree.
Through the chair, just a footnote in agreement with Hamish. We have several dictionaries in our office with Maori, the Maori dictionaries, and the variations on use throughout the country. Like if I'm dealing with Tūhoe, I have to make sure we use the right. But when I'm dealing with Te Arariki, it's changed. And the thing is, the two iwi's back onto one another. And that's the road we're dealing with them in Rotorua around Lake Tarawera at the moment. Detail, but it is quite interesting. What would be better to push it back to the iwi or the Runanga to come back to us with their interpretations? Save us embarrassment.
Yeah, and if I may, I think that phrase that I just popped through, you know, before in regards to 3.3, I think that gives us that coverage. But I guess what I was just looking for was that if we hadn't said something about macrons.
Excuse us.
If we hadn't said something about the potential inclusion of macrons, then we could be precluding ourselves from using it. And then Hamish has now raised a point, about the wording. So I think my preference in regards to that would be to give officers time to have, that opportunity to think about what that wording might be and for it to come back. Are we comfortable with that?
Do we need to bring it back, Madam Chair, or were you happy that we just bury the wording to include issues that are raised today rather than bring it back through again?
Well, part of the officer recommendation does say that we were asked to consider authorising the Chief Strategy and Community Officer to make minor and non-consequential editing changes during the final edit. So, I mean, I would have confidence in the CSO to do that. So potentially wouldn't need to come back.
Just through the chair, thank you. I mean, I think page 38, 3.3, by the addition in red, we're in a stronger position than what we have been in the past to ensure that we've got appropriate spelling and, a cultural context, I guess, and it, that almost feels as if we're in a stronger position because we've included that new narrative in red than we've ever been in the past. So if there was a concern, I'm sure staff would talk to the local Runai or whatever, if because of this inclusion, rather than perhaps us even stipulating which dictionary to use, but that might be, the reference might be that actually this provides staff the opportunity to, if there is a, I'm just thinking about, because we have Weka Place, I think, or Noah Place, Noah something here in Amberley just quite recently. Should that have a macron? Should it not have a macron? Maybe that's the sort of question the staff might say, well, might speak to local Runanga around that, to give us guidance. And I think that's what we're trying to capture here, rather than saying you need to use this dictionary or that dictionary, because that might bind us a little bit, get us a little bit more out of context. So I'm probably quite comfortable with the read of 3.3 that enables it to happen.
Absolutely, yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I just wonder that potentially what's underneath in the black in 3.4 might limit us. So, but I feel pretty confident that we could leave that in your hands. You've heard the discussion and the intent, and there's no need for it to be a complex issue. You'll come up with something simple, I'm sure. So if we could move on, are there any other aspects? Thanks, Mara.
Yeah, no, just on page, I've just come back to the same thing around board committees that just needs to be deleted on page 41. And I also just wondered, just because the naming has changed, but on page 45, this is not consequential to the impact of the, but when we talk about St. John, it's Nihato, St. John, it's just that new name. So doesn't make any difference, but it might to St. John.
Would be respectful to adjust that.
So other than that, I think it's pretty well constructed. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Yes, Chris.
Through the chair, just a question. It's a board statement. We request more over the work. I've read it all through. I'd just like to ask, when we're starting to put new names and addresses onto existing private roads or laneways, does that see us as a potential increase in our rating? In our rate revenue, that's the question. It might be better aimed at the CEO, but I'm just asking.
Could you just repeat? Sorry.
In the documents, there's notes about certain areas in regards to addressing new addresses up private points like laneways and the likes. Will that potentially give us an increase in our rates?
When new lots are created, they create new rate paying lots, but generally rates are set by the total amount of money needed divided by the number of ratepayers. So if you have 8,000 ratepayers and you need $20 million to do something, if you have 8,001 ratepayers, it just changes and divides it rather than the total amount required.
Okay. A supplementary question again, I will aim this at the CEO again, please, through the chair. I understand your statement, thank you for that. But I suppose I didn't actually word myself correctly. Say there's an existing lane that is in existence, and they decide to give it numbers, as I've noted in the documents, but nothing's actually occurring there. Now that will then change, will that not change the cash flow mechanics of that defined area?
So lots will be assigned numbers when they're created as lots.
Yes.
And so they'll become separate rateable units when they're defined as lots.
I understand.
So yeah, I'm still not understanding it.
Okay, I'm not really wording it well. Okay. Layman's term. We've got a road, it's been there for a while, no one's used it. We go in there and start putting numbers to it that don't exist at the state. Is that intentionally for rate lift, or are we doing it for development? That's probably more one way of putting it.
So we assign numbers when we're asked by the developer.
Yep.
You know, or when the developer creates new lots, we don't just go around saying, here's a number, here's a number, here's a number.
Just some of the interpretation, the way I read it could be seen the other way, I don't know, you know, it's just one I just needed to clarify. So nothing's really changed, it's just status quo.
Generally, if a lane or right of way has 5 or less properties on it, then it's regarded as a single number, but there's still 5 rateable units or whatever up that laneway. And if they want to create a 6th one, then that laneway will get a name, and the numbering will change from 1A, 1B, or whatever our convention is to the numbers on that name, right of way or lane or road or whatever it is.
So status quo as such.
Yeah, it doesn't create,
hasn't changed anymore.
can't pick up rateable units.
Unfortunately. Of course it should. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Any other aspects that you would like to explore? Oh, it's done a fantastic job with all those changes there, Helga, listening to the silence. Okay, so with that in mind, just considering that we're looking for authorisation for the CSO to make minor non-consequential editing changes in regards to you know, what we've discussed today with the Te naming. Is there anyone of a mind who is willing to consider moving that officer recommendation? Thank you, Dave. And a seconder. Good. Thank you, Murray. So the recommendation is that the Strategy and Policy Committee adopts the revised rural and urban addressing policy and authorises the CSO to make minor and non-consequential editing changes during the final edit, and that of course will take into account the wording changes for the community boards and community committees and the Hano Hato St John. Is there any further discussion? Anyone wishing to speak for or against? Okay, with that then I will put that. All those in favour please say aye. Against? Abstentions? Carried. Unanimously. Fantastic. Stephen. Thank you, Helga. Thank you for your work on that. Okay, item 2.4, rapid numbering, which is on page 67 of your agenda. Welcome, Liz. And so Liz is here to talk to us about what we've been doing over the past few years with our rapid numbering project and what our process might be moving forward. Liz, have you met everybody around the table?
I know who they are.
Great, okay. I'm just going to hand straight to you with this report.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'm just bringing a little bit of an update about rapid numbers, but also like a year or two from here with the rapid numbering. So I last brought a report to this committee that's changed names back in May 2025. And since then, with the 2 companies that provide our recommended plates, sold 232 plates, and all new building consents that come through the council getting invoice for plates, so any new dwelling or large businesses getting a new rapid number plate and either installed by myself or they're installing themselves. We're taking a few calls or multiple calls from, especially after the rapid number campaign in regard to rapid number plates, getting them, and also we're getting follow on from people that have record number plates and their neighbours seeing them, so we're getting calls from that as well. I've undertaken site visits to discuss with homeowners or farm owners with regard to around record numbering, how that should be. And cold called some people with regard to right-of-ways or farms with multiple dwellings to try and organise meetings with them to look at their record numbering as well. And then I've assisted a lot of people with record number plate ordering as well. I've found over the last couple of years that getting people to order plates, and it seems such a small thing, but just doing it for them seems to speed up the process and just get it done. So if the last couple of years we've had a record number campaign which seems to have been really successful and slowly building as well. And so we had a campaign in September this year from the last year from the 8th to the 15th. Can you be found after dark? So that was really trying to promote people or visitors, but also mainly emergency services trying to find properties after dark, and promoting our really highly reflective record numbers. Hopefully you will see them around. I know Dave's got them and Murray's got them. Yeah, so this year we had New Zealand Police, FENZ, Hayter, Pone, St John, and partners with the council to promote this record number campaign. Previous year we had our local federated farmers, but this year they couldn't do it. It was the wrong time of year with calving and stuff then. So we delivered campaign flyers through the mail, libraries, advertising, social media, and we had a bit of competition going on as well. And during that campaign alone, 95 plates were purchased. So you can see with the numbers there that promoting them really pushes them. So that's really where I've been up to since May. And then we're still having, you'll see, a few issues with Google Maps. That's just sort of keep you in the loop there. It's something you would read that we can't really control. We don't have any direct link to them, unfortunately. And then the discussion is where to from here. So seeing the report, I've looked at a couple of options, is continuing with what we're going for or going down a regulatory approach with record numbers. So my thoughts on this report are that we continue to move how we're moving, and so that's to promote record numbers through the non-regulatory approach. And then we'd have continue to have record number campaign each year. And also working with the council operations team leaders with analysis currently underway on council owned properties and what properties would be suitable for record numbers, because council has a whole lot of properties we don't really use or aren't used by the public, so we don't think it'd be good use of ratepayer funds to have record numbers on those properties, so working with them. And then private right-of-ways, continuing to try and promote numbering private right-of-ways. We've got 5 or more lots to try and encourage, promote being easier to find in an emergency. And then the multiple dwellings, working with people with multiple dwellings on their site, particularly around record numbers, and also when you get on site actually finding each dwelling. And you'll see here measuring the effectiveness of the non-regulatory approach is a bit tricky, because any plates that are ordered through me, I save something onto the file to say that they've been ordered. So if we ever did go down that regulatory approach, we've got something there we could track. But then all the plates that are ordered through these companies, obviously, I don't have access to that, and they don't necessarily supply an address, they just supply a number. And also getting the figures off the companies we're buying them. I'm not sure we're getting 100% correct figures. And then just continue on with invoicing new building consents for dwellings and properties, dwellings and businesses, and making sure they've got record numbers going forward.
Fantastic. Thank you for that commentary. And this, this has been a process that, the previous committee, you know, he's followed through right back from 2020 when we had that first deputation. So thank you for that. Right, any questions or comments? Dave?
Obviously, I'm a strong supporter of the rapid numbering. And it's been used on our farm on a number of emergencies, call outs and that. And probably as a comment on two things, of the 232, how many of them have been regulatory when it's been a subdivision, and how many have been voluntary? And I was a solution phase person, and we all know I'm patient. Thought about it pretty late. Maybe for next year, I wonder about our shows that we have as a good way of doing it. And I know we can't turn it around because I'm kicking myself because I have got a trade site that I am not going to use. So I could have given it to the council for you to stand up and have. I'm just wondering whether you think, because that's the real people going there, where you could have a meet with getting all those people there on a day. And I know from our experience, domestic blues arguments bloody ordering these stupid plates. So was pretty lucky when they came and you ordered it and sorted it out. It's not a simple simple system when you've got lots of multiple. But I do support it because I know once we do it, next door think they better do it. Yeah, Harlan shows this weekend, and I know it's not going to stand up, but there is a site that you can use there if someone wants to do it, at no cost to the council. Plus, I like your time.
Okay, thanks for that idea. I think it's something that.
I'm just wondering in the future.
Yeah. Yeah, just a renter crowd. We've got a right crowd too.
You got the people, through the chair, you got the people going to it, you know, and it might be the time that you engage with a lot of people rather than one or two people. It's time efficient.
We'll leave that with the team to consider. Councillor Coe.
Through the chair, thank you. I think that's a great idea, by the way, just so that forward. Regulatory lag might get in our way as we go forward on it a bit, but I agree with what David's saying. If we could get an environment where people can just walk in and actually pick their number up on the day. The questions I've noted is there a margin in it for us as a council? Is there profit in it for us a little bit? Or are we just passing it through? This isn't a criticism, I'm just trying to fathom. I'm going somewhere with this, just bear with me. Okay. So we're just simply passing the costs through to our rate payers.
Yeah, through the chair. Yes, we currently are.
Sure.
We don't have any margin on it. The only place we have, well, not a margin, but when through the building consent process, when they get a plate invoiced to them, there's I wouldn't even say there's really a margin there, but they're charged for my costs to go and install it and a little bit of time to order the plate, sort of thing. But we're not making money out of it.
Through the chair, so that in a consented process, I understand that makes sense. Do you think it's feasible, through the chair, do you think it's feasible for us to pursue what David's mentioned, and perhaps this year's pretty much cut now, but for next year we may look at manning a small stall around each of the AMP shows to push this product, and maybe discuss the discussion of just a little bit of margin to help cover our costs?
Through the chair, I guess it's two questions.
It is.
The first question about the AMPs, so that is something I definitely can look into. I have done one AMP last year. Oh, no, sorry, not last year, the year before, following season. I did Amberley, which is obviously quite a big AMP in our district. I didn't actually make any sales that day, or I don't know why that was, because I was expecting it to be, a place where I probably would push quite a few plates out. I did get some people ring after it that they talked to me on the day. I just think it was maybe perhaps something, I don't know if it's sort of a day with family and maybe it's not a high priority, that sort of thing. I'm not sure. It wasn't super successful, but that's not to say I'm happy to give it a crack at some other rural AMPs. Do you want to answer the second question?
It was the margin thing. Let's pass that for now. Through the chair, when you look at where the sales are, they're more rural, aren't they? They're not they aren't being sold in the urban areas. That's more the rural thing, isn't it?
Yes.
Record numbers are rural numbers.
That's what I'm saying. I'm sorry, I'm speaking the obvious. I'm just asking for confirmation. The reason I say that is maybe we should focus our attention to the more rural AMPs, not that Amberley one, because that is more an urban AMP. Even though the town does come to country, or country comes to town as such, I'm just thinking out the reef for next year. I think it's a great idea, and everyone should have one.
Yeah, through the chair, I do. Yep, I'm happy to look into that.
Something we can work
We'll leave that in your capable hands.
And we do also have some people, we remove the rapid numbering, but on the bottom, some people have actually bought them for urban properties because they're nice and visible. But we just remove the rapid numbers on the bottom.
That's cool. Thank you.
Sorry. I'll just jump to Hamish and I'll come straight back to you, Greg.
Could I just address the issue of margin on these products? So as council, we deliver a range of services. We recover our costs, but we don't seek to make a margin on those services. Rapid numbering is one of those services. The bottom line is that it's good for people, it's good for the community. Rapid numbering, make a profit on it, unless council has a different view and wants to do so.
Thank you for that. I'm in agreement with that. And that's the feeling I think to date through the process. Thanks, Greg, for waiting patiently.
No, always patient. Just through the chair, just a quick question. With the last approach that you did at the AMP show, did you combine it with fire and emergency?
Through the chair, yes, I did. Yeah.
All right, that was, I would have thought that would have garnished more interest because those are the guys who benefit most, and I thought, perhaps if you didn't, that's why. So it's a bit of a surprise. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks for this report. I've been a volunteer at Fens for a number of years, and as you say, it is certainly an important service, and especially on properties where there's multiple houses, it does make a difference. So I was quite in favour of the AMP show thing, I'm surprised that you didn't get more uptake on it. I think for a number of people, it's one of those things that it's on the list that we'll get round to one day, and if it's sort of a standard show where people can just sign up, possibly would be one. So yeah, I'd encourage you to keep train. My question was actually on the building consent side of it. At the moment, is this a requirement just for new builds? And I just wonder, is there an appetite maybe to spread that wider, that any consent would need to have a up-to-date rapid number for? I'm just thinking, like we use that for smoke alarms a lot, any consent needs for smoke alarms. Yeah, is it possible to maybe use it in that same way that rapid numbers need to be updated? Also on that one.
Yeah, it's probably a good question, but I might have to think about that one if that's all right. Come back to you.
Yeah, I think, Madam Chair, if the council sets that as the policy direction, and we make changes to the fees and charges, because it's through the fees and charges that we've established that you have to have a plate for a new build, we could do that. I imagine it wouldn't be a difficult process to add that into the fees and charges.
It's sort of a tricky one. As I say, I do like the idea of a carrot rather than a stick. Sort of weird that boundary is between those two is always tricky.
I think, Madam Chair, we just need to set what level of building consent. or whether you're just going to apply it to every building consent that affects a dwelling, that you have to upgrade your number plate. We have a threshold for access ways, we require those to be upgraded. So that's if there's an increase in the activity on the site, you've got to upgrade your access way. That may be, Liz does access ways as well, so that may be, that might be a way to join them up where we're requiring an upgrade to the access way, we require a rapid plate at the same time. That'd be easy, wouldn't it?
Would that be something that we would need to include in a potential resolution? To make that adjustment to what the office is recommending?
Can you just give me an opportunity to have just to investigate that
Sure
and
can.
see whether actually the fees and charges will be coming to council at the next meeting? I think that might be the way to deal with it. Otherwise we'll report back.
Pathway.
I'm not sure about doing this one on the fly.
Yeah, like fair call, yeah. Okay, Murray.
Thank you. One question and then I just want to speak in support of Chris. The regulatory approach, for new builds, has there been any resistance to that? I mean, once that what has been the kind of the flavour, I guess, of the tone say this is a requirement? And then, because I was thinking, like what Chris has just expressed, how can we actually enable to spread this good work further through a process, and I was kind of thinking about a consent for a build, but I hadn't thought about a threshold or what that might mean, but it was sort of in my mind. So I think that is a favourable opportunity to explore, to spread this good word across. We've done it in a regulatory sense for new, but how can we actually fold it through into existing properties through a consenting process? Because this is actually fundamentally about saving lives, saving minutes, saving seconds, for emergency services, but actually for people just to find people. So it's a good, kind of fits in with our overall strategy. So I think that would be worthy for us to have a wee look at, see how that might happen and how that might be triggered through an existing property with a consenting process. I think it would be a worthy consideration for us to look at, considering we haven't had much pushback on the regulatory for a new build process. Yeah. And I think it's a good enough story, a better story, a good, great story that can actually sit beside a new strategic action that we might take as a district. So I'm quite keen just to find out how that might happen and what the implications might be. And I'm happy to have that come back to further consideration, but it's really, in my opinion,
Yeah, I think through you, Madam Chair, I think if we can explore what those thresholds. I mean, I think of I don't know how many log burner consents that we issue a year. Would a log burner be a something that would be enough to trigger to say you have to have a record number? I mean, what we do all sorts of minor, Chris knows, bathroom alterations, all sorts of things. Do we just blanketly apply them to all rural residential building consents, or what would be an appropriate threshold?
Yeah, I think it'd be worthwhile looking at.
Yeah, and I think understanding the through an options paper, potentially understanding that process and the bishops that might or might not be within that would be important.
Yes, Madam Chair, we're only talking about a small amount of money, a plate and someone to install it.
I was thinking
It's
more
a story that sits beside the action more than the action itself.
Yeah.
That I think is where the gold is.
Can I just make a small comment on that? And I think it is a matter of getting the appropriate level. I know it's at the moment, any consent, you need to upgrade the smoke alarms, and there is a bit of pushback on it from the point of view. If somebody wants to consent to build a deck on their house, they've been got to go through their house and upgrade the smoke alarm. So people are a bit like, oh, crikey. And I think it would be a bit the same with this as well. And I think, as you say, if it's requiring a driveway upgrade or something, then that would be part of that upgrade. So yeah, I think it's just a matter of trying to find that level.
Okay, thanks for that. Brett.
Through the chair, just one quick question, and I don't mean to pull it slightly off. So if we're looking for endorsement, would it be useful as a council to write en masse to insurance companies as they are and seek their support for endorsing what is essentially ultimately potentially saving them money as well by rapid response to something that may happen in the property? And the possibility that they may just put it out with their normal invoice, if you like. Hey, rapid numbers are a great idea. They could potentially get fire service or emergency service quicker to your property. And you may find you get some buy-in from insurance companies in general to do some of that advertising, if you like, for us. I don't think that's feasible or. Thank you.
Any response on that? I'm not sure.
It's more of a general, I don't know whether it's a feasible thing, but I mean, there are benefits for insurance companies in properties having rapid numbers because of the response by emergency services to them. So you may find that they may be quite happy to endorse something like that.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I'm happy to explore that.
Yep. Thank you. Right, Dave, thank you. Patience.
Yeah, so I'm sort of happy with that. But if I'm applying for a building consent on that, there's enough time delays on that. So in parallel with that, the process of ordering this and sorting out what the numbers isn't a 2-minute process. It can be you need a planner or someone to tell you that you're a 1B or 2C or what the hell you all are, and it's a nightmare. So I don't want to slow down the process of me getting a consent because I'm doing the rapid numbering. So I suppose the question is, one, is the process got easier or is it more robust? And then I'll circle back to the shows because again, I think that's a good idea. But like selling tractors at the show, I don't sell the tractor at the show, they make the contact at the show. And maybe to a higher, using the shows as a way of showing what other services our council gives to our communities. You could, if you ended up with doing something at a show, you know, maybe a way also of showing how the council is benefiting the community. So, you know, you're not there alone.
Yeah, okay. Thanks, Maren.
Yeah, cool. I'm not so sure about the insurance process, you know, I just feel that that's sort of, we're getting into probably crossing boundaries a little bit. I think that this campaign, our greatest allies remain St John and Fire Service. They're the people, they're another the agencies within our community that know this stuff because they have been affected. It's taken longer to find an address. So I think our greatest allies, and if we can leverage off that and however we do that to continue to spread this good word, they would be my preferred allies.
Chris.
Thank you, through the chair. Just after what Councillor Hislop mentioned regards, it just popped my ears up. I would not like to see this be used as a consenting break when people are doing construction within development work, and they might find through the consenting department decide to use this to either slow or look for further charging. I think it needs to be managed properly so there is no crossover and that isn't used against persons. That's what I'd like noted, and so pointed into the points, into the minutes, please. Thank you.
I can, through the chair, just to answer a couple of questions that have been firing around, is so it doesn't hold up the consenting process at all currently. So all, and it wouldn't, so all that happens now is they basically get notified that as part of the process they need a rec number, and then it's added to the invoice, and then the process comes to me to deal with at a later stage. So it doesn't put any holds on that building consent.
Through the chair, supplementary.
Yes.
I appreciate the response and I accept that. However, there has been discussion around this table in the last 15 minutes in reference to it being a consentable item. If it becomes one, I just want it to be noted in the notes today that I would like to note that it cannot be used as a hold or breaking point in a consent or signing off of projects because of a simple element like that. That would, if it rolls into a consenting issue.
I guess that what you're requesting here is exactly why Judith is asking for time to consider
Of course, yeah.
the full process.
Through the chair, the reason I bring it up is simply that it's now stated in the minutes and that I know that it is noted and it is to go forward. That's all. Thank you.
So, Madam Chair, I guess what we were talking about is using the consent as the trigger for the threshold. So not using the consent itself, because you can't actually make it a requirement that would hold up the consent. Because it's not a consentable element, so it's not a consentable element under the Building Act.
Sure.
And it's certainly not anything under the Resource Consent or the Resource Management Act. So what we do now is we just invoice for the new plate and then we sort it out. Yeah, and so when we establish what the threshold is or what type of building consent requires an invoice for a new rapid plate, that's all that we're talking about here.
Just through the chair, just making sure that the consenting, the officers doing the work in consenting cannot use this as a hold up to sign off in a later date. That's just all I'm making clear, because issues have occurred, and not saying specifics, I'm just saying that they do occur throughout New Zealand, and I'm just asking that made in plain English, and that's all I've asked for. Nothing.
Understood.
Thank you.
Right, and just follow. Sorry, question as well. If I can answer it.
Please do.
I haven't had any issues with the rapid number plates through building consents. It's the only issues I've come across is when I discuss with them about their numbers aren't quite correct, or they've got multiple dwellings and we need to look at renumbering, but actual having to purchase a rapid number plate now.
So just through the chair, so in effect, it's stating that these people see this as a positive function, that we're offering this add-on service to their new dwelling, so it's a good thing.
Through the chair again, if I may just continue on this as a supplementary on the supplementary, I do apologise and I will stop at this point. My only point was, and I say this to the room, is that I just don't want to see it in a later date, 3, 4, 5 years from now, consent has been approved, but the officers for some reason or other choose to use the fact that the rapid plate isn't there to get final sign off on the job. That's where I'm standing.
Yeah, I think,
And that's what I think we understand. I'm just making it clear to the room,
yeah,
Madam Chair, Madam Mayor, that's all I'm doing, nothing more.
yeah, no, I think it's been made clearly that the lack of a rapid number couldn't preclude someone from receiving a consent or a sign off. Okay, any further questions or discussion? I'm just wondering, I might need some direction here in regards to, we've heard that there's a desire for some further investigation of the thresholds for consents. Might need some direction here, Judith, in regards to the officer recommendation that's written here and how potentially we might adjust that to encompass that intent of investigation.
I think we add on an officer's report back. On options to increase rapid numbering uptake, something like that.
Right, so it could become a two-part recommendation. So look, perhaps I'll test a motion here, which would be that the Strategy and Policy Committee resolves that council officers continue to promote number plates through non-regulatory education and awareness initiatives. And then a second part, that the committee requests a report on potential opportunities to explore thresholds in regards to rural consents. Does that cover what we need, or have I?
You think, sorry, I'm just thinking out loud, if I may.
Please do.
Yeah, that we ask officers to report back to increase uptake of rapid numbers, and that might just give them a bit more scope, or do you want to?
Yeah.
You could add in, Madam Chair, increase uptake in relation to the consents.
Yeah, I guess I'm just wanting to ensure that it is a paper that comes back for consideration rather than an intent to go down that semi-regulatory pathway, which would be against what the current recommendation is. I'm just trying to think about how that wording.
Well, I think at the moment, the non-regulatory approach is to invoice on a new dwelling. So we call that a non-regulatory approach.
Yes.
What I've understood is that you're asking us to investigate whether we can broaden that beyond just new dwellings.
Okay.
As a trigger point, and what is that threshold to, or what is that trigger? Yeah. Threshold trigger. I mean, the main thing is that you want us to report back.
Yeah, and we are still talking about non-regulatory education and awareness.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is it something like officers report back to increase uptake through non-regulatory process, or through non-regulatory through the consenting process? You know, that's. I know I've got a bit muddled up here, but the officers report back to increase, with the view to increase the uptake through a non-regulatory process, the rapid numbering through consenting. Makes sense? Right,
Non-regulatory and consenting.
Yeah.
Well, we're using haven't we talked all the way about the consenting process? Consenting options?
Thank you.
Can I try one?
Yeah, you try.
Thanks through the chair. The Strategy and Policy Committee requests that council officers report back to increase the thresholds for requiring a record number plate on building consents.
Threshold.
Through the chair to investigate increasing the threshold.
To investigate increasing the threshold. And so that would be a replacement to the officer recommendation in regards to continuing to promote rapid number plates.
Through the chair, I think it would be
an addition. Right, let's try this again, see if we've got it. So, that Strategy and Policy Committee resolves that council officers continue to promote rapid number plates through non-regulatory education and awareness initiatives, and that officers report back to the committee on opportunities to increase the uptake of rapid number plates. Full stop. Because I think that report that then comes back with opportunities to increase the uptake could cover the plans for the AMP show and potentially looking at the consent threshold. So I've left it deliberately open. That maybe the officers may potentially have other ideas at that point. Could we hear that back? And then we'll see if there's anyone willing to second it.
That officers report back to the committee on opportunities to increase the uptake of rapid numbers. Full stop.
But we're still with the officer recommendation there as well, because we still want to continue the
Correct.
non-regulatory education awareness initiatives. But we want an opportunity to build that. Is there anyone who's going to second that recommendation? Sorry, the motion. Thank you, Brett. Okay, would people like to hear it again? You comfortable? Is there anyone wishing to speak for or against, or any further discussion? Okay, then with that, I will put that. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Abstentions? Carried. So we will look forward to having a report back at an appropriate timeframe, whenever you guys are busy, that we can discuss any opportunities that have come to mind, including those that we've discussed today. Thank you so much for that, Liz, much appreciated, and thank you for answering all our questions and queries. Yes, I did. And it was carried
Yep, thank you.
unanimously.
Mr. Name, thank you.
Oh, sorry, I did, yes, I moved it and councillor Jones seconded it.
Thank you.
Okay, Judith, 1020, the welcoming communities, welcome plan, I think we should start on that. With the, so potentially that might signal that we might need to take a break.
We need to honour that clock till it's 10:24.
Okay, so given that it's 10:24, I think we will break for morning tea. And we will return at 10:40 to look at item 2.5, welcome communities. Thank you. Okay, welcome back. Okay, the final decision-making paper on our agenda today, page 75, item 2.5, the Welcoming Communities Welcome Plan, and welcome.
Thank
Lots
you.
of welcomes there. Welcome, Natalie. Natalie, do you know everybody around the table? Or would you like us to do a quick?
Yeah, maybe a quick whip around.
Let's do a quick whip around. And I'm going to start with Brett because I see Dave's got his mouth full.
Hi there, my name's Brett Jones, I'm a first time councillor and South Ward, and I live here in South Ward, just a little bit later.
Chris Scarlett, West Ward, live up near the lines.
Chris Garvey, West Ward, I live in Firman Valley.
You.
And I think you're all good with me.
I'm the Chief Empowerment Officer of the Filipino community.
And you know Dave, and of course you're well okay with Judith, Hamish, Hamilton, and his recording. And Nathan, of course, is there. Okay, thank you. We'll leave the paper in your capable hands.
Yeah. Nathan, do you want to throw my PowerPoint up? So kia ora, everyone. My name's Natalie and I'm the Together Hurunui facilitator and the Welcoming Communities facilitator. So today I'll be giving you a bit of an update on the Welcoming Communities program and where we're at and where we hope to go. So because there's a few new faces in the room, I might give you just a bit of a snapshot of the Welcoming Communities mahi and what goes on there. So Welcoming Communities is a program which is led by Immigration New Zealand in partnership with the Ministry of Ethnic Communities and the Human Rights Commission. The Welcoming Communities Initiative brings together local government councils and communities to make places we love more welcoming for everybody. So currently we have 35 councils and 5 local boards that have adopted the program and are rolling out the Welcoming Communities program. I do quite a bit in that welcoming community space, in that national space. So I lead regional hui, bi-monthly hui for all welcoming communities coordinators in the South Island, and are on a number of welcoming communities, I guess, working groups, advocating for rural. Obviously, welcoming communities looks very different in Auckland and Queenstown than it does in places like Ashburton and Hurunui. So Welcoming Communities works towards healthier, happier and more productive communities by welcoming newcomers to the local community. So Nathan, if we can go to the second slide. So the story so far. So Hurunui District Council adopted the Welcoming Communities program in 2022. The Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment facilitated rollout of that program, and then I secured that role in October 2022. We formed a Welcoming Communities Advisory Group in March 2023. That advisory group consists of migrants and representatives from the health, education and social service sector. The Stocktake survey was rolled out and a report from the findings was presented to Council in May 2024. We had 97 migrant respondents that filled in that survey for us. The Welcoming Communities Advisory Group developed a plan informed by the results of the Stocktake survey. In 2025, this draft was released for public consultation. After gathering feedback from our migrant community, the advisory group are currently adopting the plan. A series of migrant focused events have been delivered over the last few years. We have, over the last couple of years, really focused on our Amiri Basin area, where the bulk of our Filipino migrants are based. But over the last 12 months, we've done a lot more work up in the Cheviot area. We're seeing a growing Pacifica migrant population up there, and also in the Indian population in Hamner Springs. So developing connections, relationships with them so that we can learn where those gaps are.
So end of last year, we ran a wellbeing expo up at Cheviot School. And the thinking behind that was we're aware that there's a real gap between health services and our migrant community. Often a migrant will present to our local health services when things are a bit grim. And so we wanted to just build that connection, that relationship, particularly with our Pacifica community up in Cheviot, with our local health services. So we had a bouncy castle and face painting and a whole lot of fun for the family at the school. And then we had a number of different health services there, including our local health centre, the Heart Foundation, a number of other Pacifica organisations as well. We had about 15 to 20 Vanuatuan workers that are based up at Mount Beautiful, and they came along in their vans and all got their heart pressure checked. There were a couple of guys there that had quite dangerous results. So they were followed up with a GP that was there at the expo, and then also some appointments the following week. So that was a really great outcome. We also ran a diversity and inclusion campaign at Emiri Area School and also Cheviot Area School last year, which was just sorry, can you move to the next slide? Which was just a poster campaign, and if you're travelling up State Highway 1, on your way to Kaikoura, if you look at the school gates, you'll see a big billboard there around inclusion and diversity. And then I'm sure you've all seen our new newcomers guide. So this is just a guide that we can get out into our not just our migrant community, but all newcomers, all those new to the Hurunui. It's got all kinds of information that you might need to know if you're moving into the area. And so far we've got about 220 of these out into our community. So where are we at? So the Welcoming Communities Advisory Group is motivated to address the issues identified in the Stocktake survey through the implementation of a welcome plan. Sorry, Nathan, can you scroll through for me? So Welcoming Communities has 8 standards or eight kind of outcomes that we work towards. Sorry, can you do the next one? And so we've begun to draft a welcoming plan that identifies those 8 standards. So just to give you a bit of an idea, when we talk about equal access, so everyone, including newcomers, can easily access service, joint activities and feel part of the community. And there's just a couple of actions there that we would like to adopt as part of our plan. Obviously, the advisory group are still working through that plan, but just wanted to give you a bit of an example of what that will look like. So we will adopt the plan alongside the Welcoming Community Standard. So sorry, Nathan, last slide. So while that's going on in the, I'll just raise my voice. So while that's going on in the background, the advisory group developing the plan. There are some kind of key gaps that we've seen in the newcomer space in the Hurunui. And they are English language classes. We're seeing a real gap in that space. So looking at developing some English language classes. Driver licensing is always something that that we advocate for and encourage our newcomers, if they don't have a full New Zealand driver's license, that they that we make that as easy as possible for them. Obviously distributing the newcomers guide, and then the implementation of the diversity and inclusion campaigns, adding Hurunui College. So all of our 3 area schools getting a campaign this year. So that's what we're hoping to achieve this year. So today I'm looking for an endorsement for the advisory group to develop an action plan is what I'm after today. The action plan will be a living document, and the advisory group will continue to mould. So that's me.
Great, thank you very much, and thanks for taking us back to the history of the welcoming communities for those members around the table who I knew. Okay, so we have the plan in front of us, nice and bright and colourful, very welcoming. Are there any questions, comments or discussion around the plan that we're being asked to endorse today? Thank you, Dave.
Sure. What's the diversity and inclusion on the last slide that you're doing in the area schools? What's that all about?
Yeah, so that's just encouraging, celebrating, all our uniqueness. So so last year we ran one in Muri, one up in Cheviot, and it was simply a poster campaign and also a billboard, but then we work with the students at school and they develop their own activities that want to do kind of throughout that week. So at Muri, they had a number of different games and activities and sharing food together kind of throughout the week. And then on the Friday night, they had a big culture night, which I know Mari's a big part of, but that's just an opportunity. People bring food together, they share the food together, and then they have different, you know, performances and different things like that. But the way that we organise those campaigns is we take the school's lead. Like whatever they want to do, whatever kind of works for them. At Muri, the billboard that we designed 2 years ago was very Filipino focused, as it is, but last year we looked to include all, you know, races and, you know, everybody that's kind of goes to school were a part of that, so we weren't excluding anyone.
Yeah, no, it's good just to define what diversity, what you mean, because I knew what it was. Can I follow on someone that's watched the community go in the Muri? It's not just Filipinos from Zilch to what it is now, very diverse. The next thing that we've got to try and do is, because they got so big, it's become very tribal. And so how do we encourage them to get involved in mainstream take it to next, like we use the basketball, for example. How, is it up to us? Well, it's not up to us, that instead of focusing on Filipino basketball federations throughout the whole of Canterbury, because they're very good, how do we get them to play in the Rangiora basketball team? So how do we get them included into our communities? It's probably not us. How do we get them involved in the Lions Club and the fire brigades? Because, and I know it's no different. You go to England and all the English stick together, and you come from South Africa to live in New Zealand, and you might marry a South African. So I'm just trying to think, is the next step forward is we'll welcome them. And I always like it, citizens things we say, get involved in the community. So that's the next step that I can see is lacking.
We have
I'm sure that's us.
I think we have talked about basketball. Basketball's a real passion, particularly for our Filipino community, and we've hosted a number of different basketball competitions at the school, and we have talked with the community about having their own team, but it comes down to funding, it comes down to logistics, and so often they are travelling, through to the Waimakariri and sometimes into the city to, play basketball. I know that we do, we have hosted, every year we host a police versus migrant community basketball game at Muri, and so we'll continue to kind of do that. So, and that sort of helps them build connections, relationship, with the local village.
So through the chair, my problem I'm having, and I am voicing it to them, is they can travel to Auckland, to Nelson, Ashburton, wherever, on a regular basis to play basketball, but we need to encourage them to play in mainstream, be involved in mainstream, rather than, and I don't think it's gone past welcome.
So I think
it's integration.
Yeah, so that's what I was just about to say. I think potentially what Natalie's presenting to us is about the welcoming plan, but what you're talking about is something that sits in the next phase potentially of whatever, which is integration. But it's a question well raised and it's a discussion well had. Anything to add to that?
No, I think we're hoping to, develop, avenues. I mean, we just take our lead from the migrant community. What do they want to see more of? How would they like to be more involved with their community? A lot of our migrants own their own businesses, so that that does take up a lot of their time.
So that's where we've got to be careful, is they will take our resources and our time to do what they want to do for their group, and that's probably fine. And my problem with it is we're all immigrants in the past. And it's trying to integrate them all in to get empowerment. Anyway,
And so
voice of
Natalie,
one, as Gary would say.
as part of that program, you'll be providing links to all of those other community resources and community groups that are accessible through there. So I think that that's probably a positive way to do that. Thanks, Mary.
Yeah, cool, thank you. I think that maybe would be helpful for Natalie, just through the chair, to speak about the advisory group, the reason for the advisory group, because the advisory group is probably reflective of some of the issues that perhaps Councillor Hislop is raising, you know, and I think perhaps it's also around the basketball games or whatever. Long before we had the welcoming communities opportunity that I think was first in pilot at Ashburton District Council, and I found their action plan and thought it was a good thing to insert, and we've grown significantly from that. But actually it's helping us understand how we can all benefit by understanding each other's differences, you know, and celebrating that. You know, in the basketball game, for example, the people that come along to that basketball game are all nationalities. They are, you know, so they come to appreciate the skill base and the camaraderie and the, you know, defensive actions and, you know, wanting to beat the local policeman or whatever, you know. So I mean, there's some real, you know, and I'm sure Dave, you and Brenda have been to those events, you know, so it's actually how do we ensure that we can continue, we are always on a continuous growth about integrating everybody into every service that we've got, and that's an awareness thing, but yeah, we've come a long way. I think when if I go way back, the basketball, if we use that as an example, members of our community were travelling to Ashburton for competition. They were travelling to Wood End for competition, you know, whereas now we haven't got that strong competition, but we've actually got the ability for them to strengthen themselves to do whatever they want to do. And it's, you know, it's that enabling framework that is around this whole plan. Yeah.
Did you have anything that you wanted to add about the advisory group, Natalie?
Yeah, well, yeah, obviously the advisory group is, you know, a really diverse group of individuals. Some are migrants, some, like I say, are stakeholders. And I guess they're real advocates for the work that we're trying to do. And they've really helped me, I guess, get inroads into those migrant communities, those newcomer communities, to learn more about, you know, where the gaps are, what they need more of. And then obviously having those stakeholders in there is really important too, because they're trying to do the same thing, you know, whether it's social services or whether it's health or whether it's, you know, it's something else. Looking for ways in which we can kind of advocate for that, or, you know, apply for some funding to create an event to ensure that those needs are met. So this year we're hoping to add representatives from the Pacifica community and also the Indian community, because our focus has been on that Filipino community, but we have a number of other, you know, other groups. I know the Nepalese community is really growing as well. So yeah, there's lots of different groups of newcomers throughout the district, and so we really want to do what we can to ensure that they feel welcomed, settle in well, and have everything that they need.
Thank you for that. That's helpful. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you through the chair, Natalie. Thank you for your work. Natalie, I've read through all the documents and been looking at this for some time on other elements as well. I noticed that most of the engagement, drafting and explanations in here are focused purely and simply on the immigrant. Where's the engagement from the Kiwis, the New Zealanders, the Pākehā who come and live here, have been here, and where's the input for them to cross over to help? Because for everything I'm reading, we're looking in one direction only, we're not looking in both, from what I can see. I might be wrong, but through the chair, I'm asking that question. Has that been addressed? And if so, how? If not, why not?
Yeah, through the chair. So our focus initially was on our migrant community because we hadn't engaged with them. We weren't aware of, you know, who they were, where they were, what kind of gaps they were. And when we did our stock take survey, we did initially do a bit of work here in Amberley with newcomers, so engage with a number of different community groups and learn about those that were moving into the community from, say, Auckland or other parts of the country. And reflecting on those conversations and meeting with those groups was the need seemed to be more with our migrants in terms of resettlement, in terms of, you know, settling into a community. And I guess, you know, from what Dave said around that, you know, immersing into a community, connecting with their communities, that kind of thing. And from my understanding of the Welcoming Communities program, although newcomers is a term we like to use because it's more inclusive of everyone, where our focus was initially was with our migrant community because we didn't know who they were, we didn't know where they were, and we wanted to ensure that we, I guess, you know, as a council, we're serving them well. So that's where our focus has been. But, you know, from time to time, have engaged with those that are, you know, that are new to the Hiranui, and I'm not sure if you're aware about our Next Steps website, but our Next Steps website is a directory collaboration between Waimakariri Council and Hiranui Council, which is kind of a one-stop shop for information that you want kind of across the two districts, particularly around social services and, you know, if you're looking for additional support. And so, yeah, we've found that those conversations we've had with those New Zealand newcomers, that we're fine, we're doing good, we've got everything that we need, thank you very much, is kind of, you know, the vibe that we've had. So
supplementary question, sorry David, through the chair, thank you for your response. I think you might have misunderstood me a little bit, and that is that people like me aren't addressed in here how we can reach and help that step. All I'm seeing is how they can, as David well put, use our resources and what we've got to better themselves, which I don't have any issues with, but there's nothing in what I've read over the documentation over the last several months and recently with this coming to fore as to where the New Zealanders can focus on and assist in the other direction. Is that planned?
Through the chair, yes it is. That's sort of part, you know, we're hoping to address that in our plan.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Just a couple of things, if I may. It's probably helpful for us all to understand that the Welcoming Communities plan was initially funded by immigration. So, you know, and so just to help, you know, for Chris's benefit and for all our benefit, that the Welcoming was initially our first, I can't remember how many years were funded by immigration. So it was about, and I think it's really important for us to remember that often we talk about our migrant community, but many of the migrants that are actually immersed into this program are now our residents. Yeah. You know, so you get that shift, and we use this one single term for new people to our community, but actually they are the same as us now, they are our residents. So it's just important to keep that in focus.
Yeah,
so
thank you. In particular for that historical context in regards to the funding that will help you know, those who are newer around the table to understand that. Thank you, Dave.
Yeah, through the chair, a couple of things Maria's just touched on it, because I always bring up to them when they talk about sometimes on the Welcoming Committee, because I do, the advisory committee, I do know them as a migrant, and I say, I've been in the Hiranui nearly as long as I've been here, 17 years, so you know how I'm talking about. The second point is, I'm really pleased you are looking at the new in Hanmer and Cheviot with different communities, because I go back to and the Nepalese communities, because there's critical mass in the Filipino community where it's a preferred area for people to come, and there's so much internal support amongst them. Chris's point on Pākehā coming into the area, I've just employed a 20-year-old female from the Manawatu, and part of that, her being employed, she came for 5 days to stay with us, even though her dad worked for me for 5 years, 30 years ago, because I was absolutely, she had to fit into our community and wanted to. She actually got given this, Chris.
Yeah.
And told, you know, and was told that she had to make the effort because locals don't necessarily make the effort. Right? They don't need to. You've only got 5 friends, and so she has to do it. So in here, to those people coming in, I do need support of netball. I do need the support of, you know, of the local pig hunters. They took her out on Saturday night, you know, hunting. So it is important. So yeah, it's bringing, you know, yeah, it's and I know it was immigration, but it's supportive of professional people coming into the area too is important to me. Is how do I keep the partners engaged in the area? Anyway.
So that's really refreshing to hear that, you know, this sort of information that we're discussing here is actually going further than the migrant community, but to all people who are moving to our district. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, through the chair, thank you again. The point I was getting at more than anything was that how do we get, I don't like using the term Pākehā because I know what it means. European Kiwis, or everybody actually, that's not fair. Everybody in our community has been here forever and a day. How do we get them to cross over to the engagement point? That's more what I'm pushing at. I'm reading where it's all internalised, and as David's pointed out, they're getting tribal. And he's been very fortunate. He's right at the coal front. He sees this every day. I do not. And so I just querying how do we do that jump? How do we get our community to talk to that community better? Because really, it's up to our communities who are established to reach out and push. And that's what I'm asking is that, you know, you said that it will be addressed in the plan.
Yeah, through the chair, that's, you know, that's what we're looking to do. But I think part of my role, additional to the Together Hirano role, is to get out amongst community, meet community, build connections, build relationships. So I think, I mean, the expo is a really good example of just, you know, getting out amongst community, inviting our newcomers to come alongside, you know, the community. So next Friday, we've got the Culverton Wellbeing Expo, and the idea around that is to have lots of health services and lots of, you know, different things for kids and family and food and all the good things, but also, you know, linking in our migrant community alongside our, you know, our more established community, building those connections. And I think if I can say, Amira Area School have done a really incredible job in this space. So when I first took on this role, you know, there was a, you know, migrant students had talked about racism in school and, you know, how difficult that was, and the school have worked really, really hard to stamp that out, and they've created a migrant student club. They, alongside head boy and head girl, they have cultural leaders and worked really hard to, you know, stamp that out and create a really, I guess, a diverse environment. So we'll be partnering with them next Friday, bringing along the school community and those connected to the school, and wider community alongside our migrant community, just building those connections and feel, particularly in Amira, because it's such an established, you know, community, we have really good relationships with the Filipino community. Someone tells someone, someone else tells someone, so we're able to kind of get the word out there, and that helps us, you know, as a, I guess, coordinator to build those connections and those relationships with those key people, because yeah, it's important that we consult, that we hear, that we learn about where the gaps are, what the needs are, and those priorities that we're looking at this year, particularly around English language and driver licensing. That's what we hear over and over again from, you know, from a range of different migrant communities, is the gaps.
Yeah, thank you for that, Natalie. And you know, if I reflect on that in regards to the actual, you know, the paperwork in front of us that we're being asked to endorse today, you know, I see evidence of everything that's been discussed here actually woven through here with an intent, you know, for those connections to continue and to be enhanced as well. You know, I'm thinking even things like council partnering with local businesses, organisations and sectors. So it felt to me when I looked at this plan that all of these really important factors that we've been discussing today, it feels like they are woven through here, and there are opportunities to address those things through here. And I think it's a really relevant you know, discussion that we've had around that. Are there any further, just coming back to the actual plan in front of us, are there any further comments or questions in regards to that, and in regards to us endorsing what is currently in that plan? Okay. So is there anyone of a mind to take a look at the office recommendation in regards to endorsing the welcome plan?
With the officer recommendations, I mean, I think we've got that 100%, so maybe.
Yeah, it's been a very good discussion, and there's, you know, lots of food for thought there. Thank you, Murray, for moving that.
I'm happy to second.
Thank you. Are there any further items to discuss? Anyone wishing to speak in favour or against? Okay, with that, I'm going to move that recommendation, put that recommendation rather. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Abstentions? Carried. Thank you very much, Natalie, and thank you for the discussion, because I think, you know, there's real value in that, and we've traversed a lot of potential areas in discussion.
Brilliant. Thank you for your time.
Okay, that brings us to the end of our decision items. So moving to our first discussion item, which is on page 108. So Haljan, if I can welcome you to the table for a discussion on our climate adaptation work programme, page 108 of your agenda. Have you met everybody around the table?
I don't think I have met everybody, but since we've done the round of
yeah, all good. And welcome, Annabelle. Sorry, didn't mean to exclude you there.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kia ora, good morning, everybody. My name is Haljan. I lead the climate adaptation work program here at Hurunui District Council. So today, I take the what has been read, but today I'll just give a brief update on the climate adaptation work program, and it's actually two parts to the report. So the first part is just the update, and then the second part is Bells here is going to just talk a bit about the public engagement for rainwater harvesting event, and we'll have a bit of a discussion about that in the second part of the update. So overall, the work program is progressing well. There's several projects moving from planning phase into implementation phase, and also an overall increase recognition of council's leadership in the climate adaptation workspace. So a few key progress on the work with regards to Emily Beach. Last year, as you may have heard, there was a purchase of land at 185 Ashworth Road in early sort of last year to enable proactive relocation of Emily Beach residents. And soon after that, a green, social and sustainability loan was approved from the local government funding agency to help fund this work. And the work is now underway on a plan change to rezone the site, and a bund management plan is also currently being prepared at the moment. And so moving on to now Beach. So annual monitoring is now in place. It's been carried out twice last year to ensure that any erosion of cliff is being monitored appropriately, so that we can communicate with the landowners in time for them to move away if there's any danger. And so moving on to next to Gore Bay. An important update is that resource consent for the Buxton Creek protection has been granted last year, and so funding is also being confirmed, and construction will begin after the 1st of August this year, delivered by our council's project team. And so another piece of work for Gorbay is that the second stage of a geotechnical slope stability assessment has been it's being finalized at the moment. So it's it has been investigating the hazards and risks to properties and owners in a sort of deeper level. And it's currently being finalized, and it will be shared directly with residents once that's been done, and attached to their land and information memorandums as well. And we'll be offering an in-person meet with landowners and one-on-one sessions. And so the other piece of work that we are currently carrying out is called the CoSNAP initiative. So last year I worked with a group of students from Canterbury University to review the initiative, just to look at if the stands are in the right place and if their signages are actually attractive enough for people to pay attention to. And now I'm verifying those recommendations in the field, and we'll start implementing it this year to improve data quality. So Nathan, if you can pull up my slides, I'll sort of give a sort of show and tell on how that sort of works. And so council has, through myself, have received very strong national and international interest in the work that we're doing on climate adaptation. So that's including invitations to share with the other councils what we have been doing, the public health sector as well, some other sort of colleagues that work across the ditch in Australia, and last year there was an international conference that we participated in as well. And so at the regional level, we participate under the Mayoral Forum, the Canterbury Climate Partnership Plan. So this has established very strong regional foundations around climate risk, around emissions, climate adaptations, and also nature-based solutions. So I lead one of the actions under the plan, which is on adaptation planning, and progress on that has been quite cautious, as you can understand, with the legislations that have been sort of forthcoming and the reforms that have been happening. So we have been quite cautious so that we align with what's happening, with what's been proposed to change. And despite that, you know, the work itself position our council and the regional sort of councils as well to for upcoming changes around risk, climate risk associated with hazards, getting more evidence or information, and also coordinating with each other on this space. So that sort of concludes the updates for information that is to be received, and I'll just point to the slides for a little bit, and just to sort of illustrate what I'm talking about with the CoSNAP initiative. So this is the stand that has been installed at what now the pathway, sort of halfway going down the track. And so this information was analysed by the group of university students, and so this illustrates that when the stand has been installed carefully and appropriately, it actually in 2023 captured a cliff sort of erosion event. So the first top photo showed that the cliff is still sort of just sitting there, and then after some events in May, the cliff started to, the toe of the cliff started to collapse a little bit. And Nathan, if you can move to the next slide. And with the zoom in photo at the end, it's in August, after the second sort of storm event that happened, the toe of the cliff collapsed. So they were able to link this with two events that have happened in 2023. So it was a good thing that we collaborated, because that sort of gave me an edge to help analyze this data, which maybe I otherwise wouldn't have looked into. So that sort of illustrated the importance of how how this initiative, we put in the right place, could generate this information from the public. which help inform our monitoring activities on our coast. Yeah, so now I'll pass the updates to.
I wonder if we pause there.
Oh, yeah.
Given that, you know, that's kind of where the climate adaptation work program section finishes, and just maybe traverse any questions or discussion, and then have a separate discussion on the water harvesting. Right, so any questions or discussion comments in regards to the climate adaptation work program that's been presented? Thank you very much, Brett.
Thank you. Through the chair, if I could just ask, just on page 108 there, when we talk about coastal adaptation plans for Leadfield Beach and to Mutnau Beach, and then if we pop forward a little bit to 110 and we go down to in relation to Gore Bay,
yeah,
we pause discussion on the coastal adaptation plan there. Has there been any noise or approach from the Gore Bay community in relation to potential relocation, going back to what's happened with Amberley Beach? Have they referenced that at all?
Through the chair, we are still in the progress of engagement with the community, with the Gore Bay community in developing this plan. So we, there have been a few options proposed for mitigating the hazards that the community will face, but they haven't raised any potential sort of relocation options just yet with council.
I just, as I say,
Yeah.
I wasn't aware of anything new. I just was asking because it's happened in one area, was it being discussed in other areas just as an option?
Yeah, no, sorry, through the chair. So in addition to that, it would be very much specific to the hazards that they face.
Yeah, actually,
yeah,
yeah. Not suggesting.
No,
Just whether the question. Thank you.
Thank you for that response, Haljan. Chris.
Thank you, through the chair. Page 110, Gore Bay, clause 13. You've used a desktop geotechnical report. Was first line at the top there, it's noted you've done a desktop geotechnical. Was that a registered geotechnical engineer who did the work for us?
Through the chair, yes,
Yes. It was. Second, a supplementary question, will that geotechnical report be made available?
Through the chair, so Councillor Carthy, you are referring to the desktop geotechnical report.
Either of the geotechnical reports. At the moment, you've only stated in your work the desktop one, to my knowledge, from what I've read, so I'm assuming that's the only one.
Yeah, so that has been made available on our website, so that
On the
has
website.
been made available once we've reviewed it and finalised it with the geotech experts, and it's on our website, website on the Gore Bay webpage for everyone to
Today.
access. Yeah.
Today.
Yes, they have been done last year.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I was just asking that question. And finally, I noticed this, if one last supplementary, I do apologise. I noticed there's been an increase to 60 properties now. Is that because of the geotech desktop report?
Through the chair, yes, that's correct. So we have extended, we have extended the scope as of internal discussions and the geotech report.
Supplementary 2 questions, if I may. Bear with me, sorry about this. Will there be a correct geotechnical and soil sample test be done before the final LIM reports are placed onto the people's files? In fairness to them.
Thank you, Judith.
So the desktop study that was carried out by Jacobs.
Thank you.
Was is on the council's website and was circulated to all of the property owners. The result of that was a planning note, which highlights that any further work on any of those properties requires a geotech investigation. That's a planning note which gets picked up on the LIM. That's the current situation.
Okay.
We have commissioned some further work, which is the work that's going to be released to the community next Monday. Further work that's been carried out by Jacobs, and that involved drone survey and site visits.
So which question two? To the chief. To Judith, sorry, I can't read your note from here, my glasses are weak down here, I do apologise. So at no point are we, is there a future where we are going to have proper geotechnical? I mean, I do this for a living, so this is an area that you're walking into that I deal with every single day. So I'm asking the question, are we going to have geotechnical proper work done, digs in the hole, tests were done, Vulcan tests, etc., done on the site? We're talking about 60 properties, 60 different families who are now being affected by this. They need certainty to be able to go forward. I'm asking that question. Is that going to happen, or are we going to continue with Jacob's desktop reports? Just asking the question.
Through you, Madam Chair. As I just explained, the first stage 1 was desktop. Stage 2 was on the ground, drone survey, site visits.
Through the chair, sorry.
We'll just let Judith finish.
So the answer to the question, are we going to be sending geotech out to dig holes? The answer is no. That is not in the current work program. But if after considering the report, council instructs further work to be carried out and a budget associated with that, then that's what we can do. But at the moment, we are just working on stage 2.
Supplementary question to Judith over there. Do you think it's fair to be able to put that report onto their files without having done an exploratory geotechnical?
Through the Madam Chair, yes, it's a requirement under the, what is it, the Local Government Act.
Official Information Meetings Act 1987.
87 only. Yeah.
Any information that we have in relation to a property is required to be placed on it. So we're meeting our legal obligations.
Any further questions of clarification or discussion around the climate adaptation work? Thank you, Murray.
Oh, just if I could just take back to page 109 and number 7, and it talks about a management plan for the bund that's being prepared to include elements of monitoring and maintenance of the bund. Can you just explain what that might mean for us all to understand, and does that become an operational document for council? Thank you.
Is that a Hamish question?
Yeah,
So there's been a desire from the beach community to what they call the maintenance plan. The CAP refers to a management plan for the bund. It's meant to be jointly developed by council and the beach community. The beach community don't seem to be particularly advanced in their thinking about how that could be developed. So what we're doing is developing up a straw man saying this is the consent for the bund, this is what it allows, this is how the bund can be maintained going forward, and we'll put that to the beach, see what they do with it.
So that just through the chair, that will become more of an operational document.
Yeah, does it? Yes,
Yeah.
sorry.
And
it is an operational.
Operational.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. I just think it's important that we kind of have that clarity of thought. Thank you.
Can I just ask this as a supplementary to Mara's question? Is there what's the time frame? How far through that process are we with that management plan and maintenance plan?
How's on this one?
Yeah, I can answer that, Madam Chair. There's a few priorities I'm juggling with at the moment, but if things go well, maybe in the next couple of months, that would be ready as a draft to be shared with the community for any feedback.
Thank you. It's fantastic to hear that that's underway. Thank you, Councillor.
I just have a question, and I'm not sure if this is the right forum to bring it up or not, but I'm not sure whether it is. But on this Buxton Creek protection works, there seems to be quite a bit of debate around what will work and what won't work. And my understanding is ECAN's given a consent to build this bund as opposed to a consent to open sea I don't know if I got that quite correct or not, but along those lines. And there seems to be a bit of concern that if we spend all this money, is it going to work? And long term, are we going to be liable for other things if it's not maintained? And my understanding was there was a TV crew that you had a look at it last week. So there's obviously a certain amount of interest in it. You just wonder where this process is at and who has actually made these decisions about what work will actually be carried out.
I'll answer that one.
Thank you, Judith.
My project.
That's very right. Thank you.
So it's got a bit of a long history. And I don't know whether it's something that we should have an offline conversation about where I can explain it to you, or whether all of the committee would like to hear the story. So yeah.
I mean, I wonder potentially if there is a history that the committee, and in fact all councillors, need to be aware of, if it might be appropriate to you know, have a workshop situation where you have the ability to prepare all that history and present it.
I know it pretty well off the top of my head.
Then I'm going to take direction. I'm going to take direction from the committee as to whether this is the appropriate time in place.
I know Councillor Dilly too, so as I say, if it's something for the wider council.
How about I give it a...
Let's have a quick, we'll have a quick rendition and then
we can have a more in-depth discussion. So the initial work started quite some time ago, and it was actually around the time, not long after, around 2016, around the earthquake. And so there was some work done on applying for a resource consent to open the Ged River. At that time, we did commission some ecological investigation. The site is of significance to Maori. It's got a number of nohanga sites, and there are some ecological challenges with opening up an estuary. At that time, we decided not to pursue that consent. We were looking at spending a considerable amount of money on reports. And so an issues and options paper was taken to the Cheviot Community Committee around what could happen in that area. That committee gave direction that they would like to explore some protection around the Buxton Creek, the mouth, and back to the bridge. And so that's the basis of how that work started. So we used Jacobs again to do an investigation and came up with a design for some options, and that was taken back to the committee. The option was to use rock bags. So I've been working very closely with the Cheviot Community Committee, but also the Port Robinson Reserves Advisory Group and the Gore Bay Foreshore Trust on options. So the Cheviot Community Committee at its last meeting resolved to proceed with the project and agreed on the funding split, which is 30,000 from Environment Canterbury, and then it's about 65 from the Robinson Reserves Advisory Group and 65 from the Gore Bay Foreshore Trust. So yes, there's some consents two consents that have been granted by Environment Canterbury. There is a maintenance requirement on there. There's also some restrictions about when the works can commence. The consent was based on filling the gravel bags from a location roughly where we would expect if the Ged was going to break out, where it would break out. So the material will be taken from there to lower the boom. So that's in the hope that might encourage the Ged to go out, but at the moment the focus is on protecting where the Ged and high flow comes in and meets the Buxton, hits the camp boundary. So this has very much I've been working very closely with the community on this proposal, and it's because it's been funded by them. It's been on that basis that the work's proceeding.
that helpful?
No.
Any further questions in regards to that? Or-
No.
And then I think we do have opportunities to explore it more in another forum if anything. Any further questions or discussion around the climate adaptation plan, work program? Okay, so then we'll move to talk about the rainwater harvesting and the engagement and communications around that plan.
Oh, okay, yes, yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So, with the rainwater harvesting, public event, it was actually a decision, made by the strategy and
Community committee and the Australian,
Yep,
yes.
and that
Was a very
we explore having public sort of information sessions with Amberley community and Hanmer Springs community to see if this was something of an interest with the community itself. So Bells and I have been preparing for the event, and so we'll be engaging, the structure is that we'll be engaging a speaker for the event and have a panel consisting of several members of the public, one community member to be exact, one person that can speak from a civil defence perspective, and then a person from council, which most likely will be the planning manager. And this will hopefully generate quite a lot of a bit more livelier discussion with some panel Q&A rather than one person talking for an hour on rainwater harvesting options for the community. So today what we're asking is that the committee to support and adopt the engagement and communications plan for the project, which has been attached as part of the report. And yeah, happy to answer any questions. Yeah, and sorry, Bells, I'll pass it on, Bells.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Through the chair, I would just like to present the engagement and communication plan which Helgen and I had put together. So in a nutshell, it's to create awareness around the benefits of water harvesting for people who live in Amberley and Hanmer Springs, focusing on those two areas at the moment. As Helgen has mentioned, it was first discussed at council actually in 2024, is that right? You first discussed, yes, that's right. And it didn't go off quite as well as what was predicted, and it could have been still in the aftermath of the earthquake, or perhaps other factors. And May last year, it was suggested to float the idea again. So some people actually, we have been doing a bit of community chat, Helgen and I, and it's actually surprising how many people do already actually harvest water in their own backyard. So it's not a brand new idea, but it's just a case of getting more people on board. Our engagement will be within the school term because people go away in school holidays and whatnot. We've got a mixture of Facebook, printed ads, Compass FM. You can read this on the report. Farmers Market, or the Village Market in Hanmer Springs, and the Amberley Farmers Market for some flyer handouts. The balance is to entice people to come along. We want to give some information, but we also don't want to give too much information because then they'll say I don't need to come to the meeting now. We'd really like people to come to, or we're calling it a workshop. It will definitely be a two-direction affair, so people can ask questions at the time, and the panel will be short and sharp. So it's more, just more an engaging opportunity. We're going to have 2 workshops in each centre. Hanmer Springs on the Monday because that's best for the hospitality people and for the holiday home, Hanmer holiday home staff who would like to come. It's more the locals and the Hanmer holiday home staff we want to engage with than the holiday home owners themselves, because as you can appreciate, if you live in a holiday, have a holiday home in Hanmer Springs, you're probably not really going to be that invested in water harvesting there because you're only going to be rocking up at weekends anyway. So if they're not there on a Monday, it's not as much of a big deal. The key is to talk about, have our CDM representatives there to talk about the emergency water option rather than talking about potable water. Audience, Hanmer Springs and Amberley residents and ratepayers. As mentioned before, public workshops, and our usual channels of letting people know that it's going ahead. Mari is going to mention it in her regular Wednesday come this evening slot, and Halton's going to jump on and have a chat to Kerry as well on here. I'm going to repeat myself on here. The format, as we said, we'll start at 3, go for an hour, 3 and 6:30. We'll have a register as well of who's attended, so we can keep a bit of a record if people wish to, of course, and we can always follow up with them if they would like to learn more. Handouts and brochures for them to take away, and Haljan has mentioned who's going to be on the panel. We might create an event on Facebook where people can click if they're going to come along or not, and they could even do some comments if they had some questions and things like that. Haljan does have some pre-drafted up questions to get the ball rolling if people are a bit slow off the mark wanting to ask anything. And we've got the timeline there of when we're going to put out the information. There'll also be a web page that people can refer to after the event with a summary of questions as well and answers. Yeah, without repeating myself, I think that's on the key messages. It's for emergency and for watering your garden and washing your car and watering your lawn and whatnot in the summer during drought. It's not ideal right now, everything's lush and green and we're talking about drought conditions, but everybody does have, I think, long enough memories to remember very dry seasons that we have. We're not going to talk too much about drinking water for rainwater harvesting. We're going to talk more about just the above mentioned. The risks, of course, is that nobody turns up at the meetings, no one's interested, or people don't feel incentivized enough to actually go ahead and do it. It's not the best, most favorable financial climate right now, but people may still be interested, but we've probably got our backs up against the wall a little bit at the moment, but unfortunately we can't really have any control over what goes on there. And our financial resources on the back, $300 for printed ads, $200 for tea and coffee and biscuits, and we may have a little bit of cost incurred for a guest speaker. That's still to be confirmed. Any questions? Thank you.
And if I may go back, I mean, this was born, I guess, as a responsiveness to some of the submissions that we received in the long-term plan from constituents who had an interest in, potentially being able to consider water harvesting, especially on new homes moving forward. And then it came to the Strategy and Community Committee in the last triennium, and we felt that this was an appropriate pathway just to gauge the interest in those two urban areas. Questions, comments, discussion?
Just a question, if I may. I think, the project is exactly what she was just talked about, but I just wonder whether there's an opportunity here. Whilst I agree with your two locations, one in Hanmer, one in Amberley, I wonder whether there is a way of making, if someone lived in Colborne or Cheviot, that they're also available to attend those meetings, that it's not just solely for those two areas. So how can we include someone who's got a real desire to do it and lives in Waikari, that they can come to the Amberley meeting? So how can we, so that was just my first thought. And is there an opportunity also, I wondered, to maybe Judith will give some guidance on this, but I wonder whether it could go into an information item on both the community board agendas, that we've probably got time to get it in the April meeting. So, because then my thinking behind that is that the 5 members of the Hanmer Springs and the 5 members of the Amberley have got a role to play there to actually advertise it and roll out that net effect. Because as much as how hard we try, the interaction one-to-one is the biggest player as far as inviting people to come along, because they can see it on Facebook or hotline or whatever. So I just wondered whether we could do that. And then And that took me back to the other communities that aren't hosting, be it Hammer Springs, and perhaps it's an information item on all community boards in the next month to say, look, this is happening in each of our communities, so that if there is someone that has a real interest that lives in those smaller communities that aren't hosting, that they understand that this is happening for across the district. So it's just trying to sort of spread the word and encourage the desirable outcome, I guess, and how can we maximise that opportunity. But other than that, I think you've covered it. Thank you.
Thanks, Brett.
Through the chair, just a quick comment, just noted in the background there that we promoted rainwater harvesting as part of water conservation, and there was a bit of a grant offered, but there was no uptake. That perhaps could consider also letting people know there are real cost-effective methods. For example, the white caged square tanks. We've set up a system there, bought one for $100 of cookie time because they use it for the molasses that comes in, they sell them off. And so we're all set up. It's only 1,000 litres, but that was about $130. So if we can also let people know that there are really, really cost-effective alternatives to getting a new tank. So we have a couple of those, and that's a couple of 1,000 litres. Yeah. And very cost-effective. Because I think for some people they want to do it, but they may see it as prohibitive cost of the tank, even with a grant. There are lots of alternatives. Yeah. But it's a great idea, really. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. All discussion? Okay, so Chris.
Through the chair, have we ever explored doing a partnership with tank suppliers? To further on, which Councillor Jones mentioned, just have we?
There was some historical, yes, Judith answered that.
Yeah, we did offer, no, we did offer them to supply them at the cost that the council gets them. Yeah.
They didn't take it home.
No, but I mean, when we looked at this, it was back, the first time was back in 2010, 2011. So, you know, things are changing and people's attitudes are changing. So I don't think we should write some of these opportunities off just because it didn't work the first time. So something we can look at. Yeah.
So it is something that has been discussed, but there's just an awareness through that LTP process and our constituents that it's time to just have another wee look at all of those things. Okay.
Just if I may, I mean, I think that 2010 was sort of on the back of trying to do the right thing but this process has actually come through people's growing awareness to conserve water rather than just an opportunity in isolation. This has actually got some background to say the community are talking about it and the awareness has changed. And maybe it might, if the conversation from these two meetings says, how about, that could be something that could be explored again, because I think back in 2010 it was an initiative in isolation, not as a collective thing. So
yeah, that's good.
Yeah, it did actually. As a footnote, Auckland did push it, and it was very active in Auckland in the early 2000s, and again it fell sort of sideways as well. I was living in Auckland at the time. Thank you.
Did you have something to add?
Yeah, can I just add that perhaps after we've done those public events and depending on those, depending on feedback we receive, this could be something that can be sort of promoted in a way or sort of awareness raised in a way, but at relatively low cost, so that it's like an ongoing thing rather than a one-off thing, so that it just stays at the back of the mind of people as well. Because I mean,
And would it be likely that following those events, and we have a gauge of interest, that there'll be potentially an information paper come back to this committee to look at whether there is further actions?
Yeah, that's the intention. To do that, yes.
Okay, so we're just being asked to receive the information related to the Climate Adaptation Work Programme and discuss the information related to the rainwater harvesting and adopt the engagement and communication plan that Bells has presented. Is there anyone of mind to move that? Thank you, Brett, and a seconder. Thank you, Mari. Any further discussion? You wanted to speak for or against? I would say that I'm pleased to see that you know we are going ahead with that rainwater harvesting. Right, then I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Abstentions? Carried. Thank you very much, Haljan, and thank you, Bells. Thank you. And I'm sure we'll all look to promote the events to our networks as well.
Wonderful, thank you, councillors, if you can assist us.
Absolutely. Okay, so moving on to item 3.2 on page 144, which is our draft environmental scan. And I'll welcome. It's Kes, isn't it? Kes, thank you. Kes, sorry. I should have checked it with Rebecca. Welcome to the table. You've been waiting patiently down the back and listening intently to our discussions. So you had the environmental scan, which I always find a really interesting piece of information about our district. And Kes is here to talk us through that scan and the opportunity for us to discuss and provide feedback on this draft. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
And you've heard everybody introduce themselves, so.
Just some words for the councillors that are new. There has been 3 previous environmental scans that have been approved by the council in 2018, 2020 and 2023. The draft environmental scan 2026, hereafter referred to as the 2026 scan, is the 4th iteration of this document. The purpose of the 2026 scan is to provide an analysis of internal and external factors that create opportunities and challenges for the council. The 2026 scan also establishes a set of agreed upon figures that guide long-term plan deliberations, as well as activity management plans. This report seeks feedback from the committee on the 2026 scan, which will be incorporated and presented as a finalised version at the 12 May 26 committee meeting. I take the report in Appendix 1 as read. However, it is a long document, so a summary has been prepared to address potential discussion points and note changes. The introduction and district summary begin on page 149. The purpose and scope of the 2026 scan is stated, as well as its relationship with other council documents. Most of the content here has been paraphrased from the 2023 scan. However, the role citations play in this chapter is noted. They are included as footnotes, which can be matched to references at the end of the document, allowing readers to directly access key information in greater detail. There's a section on recreation parks and reserves on page 152. Once again, most of this content is similar to the 2023 scan, with a few minor changes to content and style. The Mana Whenua chapter begins on page 153. This was previously titled Iwi and Hapu in the 2023 scan. Statutory acknowledgement areas are noted in the 2026 scan as per the Huranui Operative District Plan. Our Memorandum of Understanding with Ngai Tohuriri and Ngāti Kuri from 2004 is also included in this chapter. The population chapter begins on page 154. It's important to note that the 2023 New Zealand census provides figures for this chapter, whereas the 2023 scan used figures from the 2018 census. Population in the Huranui district grew at a rate of 8% since the 2018 census, exceeding national population growth, which was 6.3% for the same period. The median age in the Huranui in 2023 was 46.2 years, up from a median age of 44.4 years in 2018. Amberley has the highest median age in the district at 52.7 years, and this is driven by a combination of factors, including its popularity as a retirement destination and the town's attractive lifestyle. The 2026 scan also notes increasing ethnic diversity, with the decreasing percentage of people identifying as European. The figure at the bottom of page 154 displays life cycle age groups measured in a percentage to give a general indication of age and growth figures. Moving on, the housing and income chapter begins on page 159. It is stated that the Hurunui district is a relatively affordable place to live with a median house price of $550,000 compared to the national median house price of approximately $880,000 in 2025. Average weekly rent in the Hurunui district is $400 per week, well under the national average of $610. The figure on page 159 displays average house prices for the main urban centres. Median household income in 2023 was $77,400 compared to the national average of $97,000. Unemployment in 2023 was 1.4%, with 49.7% of residents employed full-time. Home ownership in the Hurunui is above the national average, with 61.5% compared with 54.9% nationally. Moving on to the next chapter is climate change, which begins on page 162. In 2025, a local government funding agency working group prepared 3 scenarios for local governments. These have been modified for our local context from 5 scenarios developed by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. 3 scenarios use the Shared Socioeconomic Pathways, or SSP model, to estimate climate change impacts depending on the level of reduction achieved. SSP1 assumes we've achieved net zero by 2050, SSP2 is a delayed transition, and SSP3 are our current policies. A council officer prepared an unpublished internal document on how these scenarios will impact the Hurunui district, and the information within the table on page 162 has been taken from that document. A section on changing land use for a changing climate begins on page 163. As an author, I wanted to highlight how climate change is challenging, but also brings us opportunities as the economic viability of our land changes. This will impact wine growers with earlier flowering, ripening and harvesting dates. Also talking to some community members, problems with powdery mildew and other funguses from high rainfall seasons. Also, Okuorta Farms is already capitalising on climate change projections that suggest coastal Cheviot currently has a similar climate to that of Motueka in the 1970s. They've established hops, apples, pears and cherries in an attempt to develop an industry in the district. The natural hazard chapter begins on page 164. Once again, it's very similar to the 2023 scan, where the main threats are described in various sections. More context has been added to the 2026 scan, which includes the Waipara fire in 2024, the high wind speed event in 2025, and the Pandora's tsunami exercise, which was also in 2025. The coastal hazards section, which begins on page 166, was also expanded to include the Coastal Conversations Project, the Coastal Adaptation Plans, the NZPI Best Practice Award, and the Amelie Beach Land Banking and Pre-Active Relocation Initiative. The legislative changes chapter begins on page 169. There have been significant and complex changes across a wide range of areas since the 2023 scan. This chapter makes up a considerable amount of content for the 2026 scan at 18 pages out of 51, excluding references. As the committee is already informed on many of these changes, I will note each section in case there are comments or questions later on. Resource management reforms, the National Policy Statement for Highly Productive Land amendment in 2025, the New Zealand Coastal Policy Statement Amendment 2025, the National Policy Statement for Freshwater Management Amendment in 2025, the National Policy Statement for Indigenous Biodiversity Amendment in 2025, two new National Policy Statements, which are the National Policy Statement for Natural Hazards 2025 and the National Policy Statement for Infrastructure 2025, the National Policy Statement for Renewable Electricity Generation Amendment 2025, National Policy Statement for Electricity Networks Amendment 2025, DMRU Regulations and SSAD Amendment Acts 2025, also known as the Granny Flat changes, the Fast Track Approvals Act 2024, the Rates Cap Proposal 2026, Climate Change Response Emissions Trading Scheme Forestry Conversion Amendment, the Climate Change Response 2025 Target and Other Matters Amendment Bill, the Local Government Water Services Act 2025, and the Government Policy Statement on Land Transport 2024 to 2034. The next chapter is Technological Advancements, which begins on page 188. The 2023 scan focused on a few items like 3D printing, self-driving cars, smart roads, etc. Within the 2026 scan, the scope was narrowed to more common issues we might face over the short term. And the focus has very much been on the renewable energy sector, which has experienced rapid growth since 2020. In 2024, the sector grew by 45.5%, predominantly from solar, wind, and geothermal projects. The Mount Cass wind farm is included in this chapter, as well as the 2 proposed solar farms. Moving on, the infrastructure chapter begins on page 190. It follows a similar structure to the 2023 scan with updated figures where possible. The roading and footpath section was sent to the 3 waters services, as well as the 3 water services section was sent to the respective teams for review. They provided updated figures and helped to identify opportunities and challenges. The Cape Valley landfill was also noted within the 2026 scan. Moving on, the economic profile chapter begins on page 196. Enterprise North Canterbury was contacted for advice on this chapter. They provided a valuable summary and where to find up-to-date information. The percentage of working age population that are employed per sector is displayed on the table in the centre of the page. And the 2023 census data was compared with figures from the Stats NZ Data Explorer to determine these figures. MBIE Model Territorial Authority GDP 2025 data was used to describe GDP per industry group in the district, which is described on page 197. MBIE also monitor international tourism expenditure. As shown by the figure on page 198, there was a significant decrease to under $3 million for the years 2021 and 2022, but expenditure bounced back to $14 million for 2023 and rose above pre-COVID levels, totaling $15.7 million in 2025. The affordability of services is the final chapter and begins on page 199. So again, the content is very similar to the 2023 scan for providing a broad summary of our challenges. Core and community infrastructure was described in greater detail to give the chapter some more context. Fees and charges were discussed from the fees and charges statement of proposal 2024. And the annual report 2024 to 2025 was used to summarise our expenditure, assets and operating deficit. This concludes my summary of the 2026 scan, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you very much for that commentary. It's very thorough, very thorough. Okay. There's a lot of information there. Do we want to go section by section, or are we happy just to jump around? We'd like to go section by section. Okay. I'm seeing a nod from Chris. Okay, look, let's potentially then go page by page. So then anyone who's got any notes can. Okay, so page 149. 150. One's just contents, 152. 153.
Just if I may, thank you, Kes, for the immense amount of work here. I just wonder, when we talk about mana whenua, we talk about our relationship with Ngāi Tahu and the Tūrunanga. I wonder whether it could be or should be included, and I'm happy to take guidance on it, but with the Wharanui now being in Hamner Springs and that part of that history of the build of relationship or the change of relationship, I wonder whether it should or could be noted in here as a significant factor of, you know, that environmental platform that we now find us in, given the growth and the progress and the change. So I understand that, you know, we've got, you know, 100 or 200 years of history, but I just wonder whether that is a pivotal change in the context of this community and it should be there.
Through the chair, thank you, that's an excellent suggestion, I'll look into that.
Yeah.
Report back.
Yeah, that would be great, thank you. Yeah, I just think it's a important milestone in the growth of our community.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Anything else? 153, 154. I'm just because this is the first this infographic in here, and this I know is just a draft. Some of the infographics are a little bit blurry. I'm assuming that that's just a process that will be fixed.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Formatter has worked on this on my behalf, and we will look at making everything crystal clear, tidying up tables that are used as well. It'll be consistent on the finalised version.
Thank you. I figured that was just something in process.
Excuse me, through the chair, when I bind the agenda, you can also lose.
Yes,
Some of
yes,
that
I was
colour,
aware.
so it's not-
I
it's
just,
not-
yeah, I just wanted to make sure, because it was certainly clearer when I was looking online, but, you know, I thought I'll just ask the question anyway. It's just, okay, 154, 155. Sorry, Chris.
154, if I may. Thank you for the work, great work. District Council, we've got 8% growth since the 2018 census. We're now, which is there and above that. Will this document help reflect into our planning, so more to be able to manage or give better service into these people? Because we are getting growth, which is kind of cool.
Through the chair, yeah, it's a very high level document. It just helps to identify those opportunities and challenges and make the councils and committees aware of them.
So it will.
It will, that's the purpose.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Yeah, just the wording, I guess, on page 155 and challenges, talk about infrastructure and services, including schools and medical facilities. And I just wonder over perhaps the context that we talk about education, health, and I wonder whether we should include police in there as well, because they're important, critical sort of national services that are becoming or could potentially become more of a challenge for us to have those services. So I wonder whether we should talk about health, education and police.
Yeah, is it just police or is it all emergency services?
Good point. Yeah, thank you. Maybe it is all emergency services. So thank you. Yeah, yeah.
Or is it all emergency and social services through your chief?
Yeah, well,
because
we're getting broader.
You suffer from significant unfunded.
Yeah, you're right. No, I think I think we're getting in the right direction with the wording. It's about what are our challenges going forward. So yeah, that's cool. Thank you.
And if I may, page 155, where we talk about the proposed wood end bypass, making our district more accessible. I feel like it's actually the Belfast to Pegasus proposed motorway that would make the access, make us more accessible rather than the actual bypass itself. maybe it's just a wording.
Sorry, please, sorry.
155.
Oh,
It's in the factors for population growth. Right.
Sorry, can I go back to page 150? Now, this might have just scoped from the last one, when we talk about our district boundary, that we are wedged between Waimakariri and Kaikoura, but actually, you know, we've got about 7 TA boundaries. So I wonder whether, you know, we're Selwyn and Grey and Buller and Marlborough and Waimakariri and, you know, I wonder whether we actually sort of, when we think about our district, that probably gives a picture of the size of the district and the dynamic. Sorry, just go back to page 150.
156. 157.
Sorry, just on 157, I see you've got modelling there up to 2040, estimating that 30% of the population will be aged over 65. Is there that date for a particular reason, or do we have any modelling further out than that? Because my understanding is going out from that ageing population will start to decrease.
Through the chair, if we could look at the citation that was used, citation 9, which referenced the stats ended place and ethnic group summaries. If there's a more appropriate data set to use that maybe gives us some long-term forecasts, definitely be open to incorporating that into it.
Comfortable with that? Yeah. Page 158. Now this might have just been me. Challenges. In there it said a greater number of people retiring in good health can volunteer and support the community. I kind of felt like that wasn't a challenge, that it was actually a positive thing. That's the second bullet point under challenges. I actually thought, oh, that's a great thing.
If I may, to the chair, having done a wee bit of volunteering over the years, as you get to 60, whatever I am, volunteering starts to drop off the list of things you want to do until you get out, if you had a little bit of playtime, and then possibly go back to it with people like the health financial services and those sorts of things.
Understood, but the statement says a greater number of people retiring in good health can volunteer and support the community. So I don't feel like that's a challenge. I feel like that's actually is it a factor? It could just move up. Yeah.
And it's actually positive aging
Yes.
enables, you know, people retiring with good health to volunteer, you know, just.
Yeah, anyway, we'll put that out there and we'll leave it with you. 159.
No, sorry, can I just come back to 158? Because I was thinking about the last bullet point about lack of public transport for those no longer able to drive. I wonder whether we should include in there as the challenge is that around the provision of our community vehicle trust who rely solely on volunteers to provide in the absence of public transport. That's the challenge. So I think that probably would be a statement that would come into there as well. Thank you.
And then, sorry, in the challenges, I've just noticed this, I didn't have it in my notes. The second to last bullet point, increased pressure on medical care, probably just increased pressure.
Yeah.
159. 60. 161.
Through the chair, thank you. Access to service is consistently a challenge throughout the district due to a small population over a large area.
So page 161, bottom point for everyone.
Yes, correct. Thank you, Chair. Is there any option to consider intensification, construction of intensification to minimise civil works and the likes? Just something that might like to be thought of to go into there. A few years ago overseas in other countries that discussion has been used, and particularly in Europe, intensification reduces civil costs under the ground, reducing the expenditure to the councils, but also maintaining the rateable value of the units accordingly. And proportion to margin of investment. I know it sounds a bit long-winded, but you know what I mean. Yeah.
Through the chair, I'm not too sure I can answer that, sorry, but we'll look into it.
That's cool, because I'm a believer in it, in certain parts, intensification was drummed into me by my uncle, who's a very accomplished engineer, proving the amount of water that's in the ground. When you do a development and you stretch it out, there are pipes in the ground, there's millions of litres now stored in those pipes doing nothing every day, which is no longer in the environment, it's no longer working where it should be nature intended, it's stuck in pipes, whereas intensification reduces that footprint and also reduces the cost of civil expenditures. It also allows ratables on top, and it's all relevant to margins and percentages against the rates because the amount of infrastructure balanced against the return of the intensification actually is more profitable.
I think we'll leave that with Kees and he'll make a decision on what would be
I really look
appropriate
forward to hearing that.
in this document.
Thanks very much.
Hamish, you.
So I note that council raised a solution to the challenge rather than the challenge itself. And if you have a look at something like the annual spatial plan, Southport spatial plan, for example, there is a big focus on intensification. Of the talk about housing, focus on that. Other types of intensification in the district probably aren't as such as agricultural intensification. It's really
No. Thank you for the correction. No, he's right. I'm talking about urban intensification. Yes.
I think, Madam Chair, the points noted of just working out where is the most logical place to put it in the document, so.
Oh, yeah, it just
So
seems.
we can just certainly accommodate it, it's just working out where it needs to go.
Sure, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Great, okay. Well captured. 162. 163. I just wondered under opportunities where it talks about the changing climate will make some new land uses viable. I wondered if that's about the changing climate will continue to, because there are already, people who are going down the track of planting apples or whatever. Just waiting. 163, anyone else? 164, natural hazards.
Just, fourth line down, natural hazards.
Or defence.
Is a C.
Yeah. It is too.
And just from is that a Kaikoura photo or is that a Hiranui photo?
I wondered that too. I wonder that.
It looks just like a
Yeah, I'll ask my formatter that.
Yeah. So I was trying to think, where is that railway line? Close to the river mouth?
Just Couch River mouth, just South Bay.
Yeah. Oh, it is, yeah.
Oh, this is a trick.
Yeah. Seeing as how I'll do it. Okay, 165. 166. 167. I'm just going to ask about at the top, the heading is Amberley Beach land banking and managed relocation, and then later on we talk about proactive relocation, and I just feel like we need to get the language in line, whichever language that we use. I'll leave that with you. Anything else? Yep.
Yeah, I just want to question the reasoning behind 185 hectare property cost 3.8 with 9 councillors voting in favour of the purchase and 1 against. I just wonder whether we haven't talked about any voting capacity or majority or unanimous in any other decision. So I do not think that should be there as my personal preference, because that's it's not relevant to this scheme. My opinion.
I agree with that. That's fine. Okay, 168. 169. 170.
Good grapes, I must be in water.
171. 172. 173. These are the 174. 76. 77. 78. 79. Gosh, there's a lot of them, isn't there?
Yeah,
80. Okay, 81. 82. 83. 84. 85, 86, 87.
Yeah, 85, sorry. can I just go
85,
back? And there again, I just look at the challenges in the final bullet point. Financial constraints on the Wisco might demand more decisions from our councillors. I'm just not sure whether that's the appropriate statement for that, in that section. So having to be guided by somebody, but I just wrote what does that mean, you know? So yeah. I don't know whether it should be deleted or whether it should be just, you know, because
it's the bottom point on page 185, and actually council laws are spelled wrong too.
Yeah, but it doesn't actually make sense.
No, I just think it needs, either needs to be deleted or it needs to be rephrased because it doesn't seem to have any, it seems to be in the wrong context or giving the wrong view of this. Yeah, so I don't know, I'm not a suggestion, but I just didn't
Yep.
just think about that.
Yep, well noted, okay, so 187. 188, on that one, where it talks about wind farms, locally the Mount Crest wind farm is due to commence, has commenced or commenced construction in early 2026.
Yes.
Yeah. 189. 190. 191. 192. 193, the graphic there, I mean, I can work out what the dots and colours are, but there is no key to it, so anyone else that was looking at that might be unsure what that's showing. So we can get some sort of explanation on that. 194, 195, 196. 197, 198, 199.
Sorry, I'm just dwelling on this, sorry, on page 194, I'm just reflecting on the site visit, 194, sorry, Cape Valley landfill, joint venture between blah, 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 the largest, I think it's the largest private public waste company in New Zealand, is that correct, Hamish? Because it's a public.
It rings a bell. But
Yeah, I'm pretty certain that it's actually a public-private, so that might just need double checking maybe.
So which sentence is that?
Oh, sorry, the last sentence under the Cape Valley landfill, the joint venture between Waste Management.
And then into the next paragraph as well, that refers to it as a private.
Yeah.
Right, 197, 198, 119, 200, and then get into the references, which we'll assume are all correct.
Can I check that the 195 is a tick across against the opportunity?
Yes, yeah.
Through the chair, just a draft still.
Absolutely,
Legal Matters
yeah.
is working on it to
Yeah,
bring some consistency.
Yeah.
Feedback.
Okay, any other comments or questions?
Chair, thank you. I mean, I read the bits about waste and because one of my passions is trying to reduce waste. I hate the stuff.
So we're on page 194.
We'll use 94, 195, but yeah, I just wanted to know, probably more like 195 top environmental concerns. Is there any way that we can possibly figure out a way that we can word to put in the assistance of removal of plastics out of emulsions? I know that's impossible, but I'm trying to figure out how there's a way that we could put into our environmental scan management over the plastic recycling, stronger place in recycling and how that could be achieved. More of a challenge than a question, to be honest. You know,
Do you think it's covered under opportunities though?
do you think it is?
When we're talking about providing education,
Yeah.
reducing volumes of food product.
Okay. Thank you.
Potentially, potentially there could be a.
I was even being more merciless and thinking about pushing retail and wholesale, I know some areas, I know I'm pushing a button with that, but one of those things, the opportunity, I look around at the opportunity and I use this, the straw removal out of certain communities and going to paper straws. I mean, it sounded stupid at the time. We've removed singlet bags out of our communities, but the packaging is still there on the shelves. It's almost an oxymoron, to be fair. It's so, I just wondering, is this something that we could anticipate and lead on in that area? Being a passion of mine, I do apologise on that point, but yeah.
Just through the chair, I wonder whether it's, I take your point, but also it's about understanding that linear economy as opposed to that circular economy, not buying the product that's got the polystyrene tray in the first place, like all that sort of stuff, isn't it? So in coaching and teaching us all to be better custodians by being in more of a circular economy rather than a one-use wonder and it's in the dump, that's kind of how I read that statement in many ways.
Okay. Yeah, no, I appreciate the direction. I definitely do. I'm a wee bit blinded on this area because I'm that passionate. I really dislike it. I've surfed all my life and I've watched the ocean change with plastic. So yeah, okay.
Madam Chair, if we look down on opportunities, I think we've got providing education on our waste management practices. I think we can perhaps be specific about reduction in plastics packaging. Because the next bullet point, we've actually been quite specific by saying cooking the right amount of food, eating leftovers and storing food. So I don't think it's out of kilter to be more specific in the one above. Yeah. So just to clarify, you're talking about a reduction in plastics packaging. Yes, yeah. I've written that down. Yeah. So I think that's appropriate.
Yeah, because I think that's kind of where we're heading.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, we all know that ourselves. What you buy, you kind of look, all that waste around your tomatoes, around, it's all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Why they wrap the cucumbers, but we'll leave that. I'm sure that you can adjust that and pop something in there. Okay, anything further in regards to this draft? Keeping in mind that we'll get another bite at it. It's a well written document. I always hold on to the environmental scans because they're actually such a compact summary that you can pull on in lots of different scenarios and discussions. So we have been asked to consider discussion, provide feedback. Do we need to move that, given that we've done it? I suppose we do. Let the committee consider, discuss and provide feedback. Kind of just did it. So I suppose we still move it. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Someone who's willing to look at that recommendation. Thanks, Mary. And someone to second. Thank you, Chris. Kathy. Is there any further discussion you wanting to speak for or against? Right. That's it. Then I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Against. Abstentions. Carried. No, thank you very much. Good job. We'll look forward to seeing the next iteration come forward with those few changes because it's really not too much there. Good job. Okay. So I'm going to put myself in your hands. It is 12:30. We have because it's a very important document, the Strategy and Policy Committee Work Programme update. Are we comfortable to continue with that before we close the meeting or break lunch? Yeah? Okay. Rightio, Judith. That puts us in your hands.
Andy.
Andy. Sorry. Andy, we'll put ourselves in your hand, page 207. The work programme for the next 12 months-ish.
Yeah, good afternoon, councillors. So this is, I think, a slightly different iteration. I don't know that it's too different.
It looks different.
Just not feeling our way around how you want to have this work programme presented. So I welcome any feedback and thoughts on how it can be enhanced moving forward. And yes, this is taken from a spreadsheet, and in that spreadsheet of, besides each project, we prioritise it. And it's quite a very complex, detailed matrix of prioritisation, so it's not an order of priority, but it is. So, for example, priority 1 projects are all in here, but then we sub-prioritise it, so quite a complex matrix that we're revisiting. So I'll just go through it as per it's presented, but some of them are being actively worked on now, but they might be further down the page, if that makes any sense at all. So one that's actively being worked on is the Northern Pickers's Bay bylaw. Those councillors that were around in June last year will recall a site visit we did to 2 or 3 of the beaches in June 2025. Steph Chin is leading this project. We're currently seeking feedback from the community. We've been doing that since pre-Christmas. That closes end of March this year. And April 7th, we'll be coming back to the committee for a workshop, which will have 2 components. One will be a briefing on the bylaw, so they'll update the new councillors and remind the councillors from the previous term. And then we're going to get officers from Waimakariri to just talk about their experience, just to give you a sense of what their experiences was and how that might relate to our bylaw that we need to develop. And then we'll also get some ECAN monitoring and enforcement officers come in and to also talk about their experiences as well, because they do some monitoring and enforcement for us on this in space. So I think it'll be valuable to hear what they've got to say. We'll then go away and draft a revised bylaw, April to June, legal review June, July, and then we're looking to do some consultation on a revised or final draft bylaw, sort of mid to late 2026. And then with a view that we adopt it early, hopefully late 2026 or very early in 2027. We need it adopted by 1 July 2027. The next thing on the list is the gambling policy. Now, there's been a slight change since this was circulated. This was previously not allocated. We've allocated that to Helga to continue. We'll develop a more detailed project plan, timings, etc. And when we come back, I think in May, I can provide a bit more of a detailed project plan, timings, etc.
Through the chair, if I could just ask I've just got 3 quick questions in relation to gambling. One is, what is class 4 gambling?
I have no idea.
Oh, sorry. Oh, okay, that's what you're going to come back. Okay, sorry. Okay.
They're the pokies, yeah. The poker machines.
Oh, yeah, no, I understand. So should I hold off on any other question?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry.
And you can click me an email if you like, and I'll. Yeah.
Thank you.
The legislation is mainly directed class 4s for pubs and clubs.
Yes.
Next, we've got the Southwood spatial plan implementation and the town centre master plan. There's been a couple of workshops on this in the last few months. And again, there's a slight change to what was presented. I've got some more locked in dates. So the week of 20th of April, we're looking to have the first of 2 hothouse sessions. Previously, when I've spoken to this, it had been a sort of vague idea that we'll do a hothouse, but I think based on our last workshop, we'll look to do 2. One will be a briefish introduction, get the relevant stakeholders in the room, talk to them about what we're looking to achieve, how we want people to behave, what is a town centre master plan, what are some of the issues to consider and think about. So looking at it maybe an hour, and with a view that we'll come back for a second more detailed session 3 to 4 weeks later, and sort of the week of May, 18 May. Go away June, July draft the master plan, July, August, community engagement. And between September and November, bring it back to the committee to adopt. Which would include some sort of, if we get feedback, or submissions, some sort of opportunity for those submitters to speak to their submission, a little bit like how we did for the walking and riding strategy. Similarly with the Emily Reserve strategy, we've spoken about that previously as well. Looking to talk to South Ward Community Board and Emily Reserves advisory groups on the draft strategy that we spoke to at the last workshop. And again, with sort of later this year, adopting that. Updating that based on whatever feedback we get from those stakeholders. You already heard from Haljan about the community water conservation workshop. This will probably drop out of the work program. It was just in there more for early planning purposes. So a couple of other things that the coastal conversation stuff will probably drop out of a briefing on this, because there'll be briefings from the relevant officer as things progress. Implementation of the South Ward Spatial Plan. This is sort of a business as usual thing that all parts of council, we would hope, are sort of pushing with relevant stakeholders, in this case NZTA, to look at safety improvements for State Highway 1. That'll form part of the discussions for the Town Centre Master Plan as well, for example. And it's a part of the South Ward Spatial Plan and the walking and riding strategy. Sorry. And again, similar business as usual action, advocating to Environment Canterbury for that consideration of public transport opportunities. So there's nothing specific that we're doing, but it's, I guess, promoting that and socialising that within other council teams. South Ward Spatial Plan implementation, the development of the community hub. Again, that's been, it's not been completely absorbed into the Town Centre Master Plan, but it is going to be part of that discussion. You know, what is it? Where does it go? It's already included in the long-term plan, I think year 10, but it's sort of starting to look at, well, where does it go? What is a community hub? And you know, early discussions are, is it an extension to the existing library? Is it just the library and an extension? Does it include indoor outdoor space? So yeah, and we're talking with the library team on that. I'm not going to talk about coastal conversations at Gore Bay because Haljan's already spoken about that, and about the slope stability issue. And the next one is operation of drones over council reserve land. Now, again, this is a slight change to what was previously circulated. Again, this has been allocated to Helga. We don't anticipate it's going to be a significant change. Probably more of a rollover, but we'll get some feedback and discuss that internally with relevant ops team, reserves team, etc.
Can I just ask Andy a question, please?
Yeah, sure,
So the review date, 14 May 2025, does that mean the policy that we have just rolls over until we review it, or does the policy, has the policy lapsed and we don't have a policy?
Well, this is an internal policy, so the bylaws would have a more statutory requirement to review them by a certain date, whereas internal policies, I mean, we want to be progressing them in a timely manner.
Yeah.
And you know, I think hopefully we'll be looking to do that over time. So this will remain in place until it's a new one is adopted.
Yeah, okay. So the 2025 date is it's a point in time, but it's still inactive until we do something different. Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Cool, thank you.
Asset management policy, this is a less of a priority. It's not been allocated. And I haven't really got much information to share on this. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to take the questions, but I'll need to come back to you. I'll need to talk to either Dan or Jason about this.
Yeah, I did wonder when I looked at those dates, because it said review due by August 2023 and at least 6 months prior to the adoption of the LTP. So that would have meant that we hadn't done a review prior to the last LTP. And does that mean that we really should be prioritising it, you know, before the 2027 LTP? But I'm happy for you to come back to us with.
Yeah, I guess in all of these things is resourcing is the issue, and we're just going to have to talk with Dan and or Jason and throw some resource at it if we can, based on, you know, how critical it is. And I guess that's the point of us trying to, you know, to prioritise our prioritisation process based on dates, and then well, maybe the state, you know, i.e. the drone policy, there's nothing wrong with it. We want to get it done, but this might be more.
Yeah. When you think about the more time's elapsed, and it is linked into the long-term.
Similarly with the complaints, compliance and enforcement policy, that's again been allocated to Helga, busy lady. And we'll be able to come back potentially at the next meeting in May with a more detailed project timeframes and process.
So can I ask, and you may not know, it said that the policy was adopted in May 2014. Do we know what the length of that policy timeframe was? Was it to be reviewed in 5 years or 10 years?
I think typically council policies are 5 years. Within 5 years, so, you know, by no later than X. So yeah, it's well out of date, I would suggest. And I think there are the complaints and enforcement team have identified there's some changes needed. Development engineering standards, and I'm going to lump this in with a proposed plan change X to the district plan transportation chapter. So because they're linked, we can't change one without the other, because the engineering standards are referenced in the district plan. So if you change the engineering standards without updating the district plan, it doesn't make a lot of sense. So also complicating it is that the government has put in a plan stop. I mean, it's not a massive complication. We just need to lodge a exemption to the plan stop so that we can progress the plan change. They can say no, and I haven't really got a sense of how they'll think about it. They're typically, as I understand it, more open to plan changes which sort of increase development capacity. But because the RMA still got, well, at least 4 years to run before the RM reform process runs its final natural course, the district plan still is in effect. So, you know, for it to function efficiently and effectively, yeah, it's to me a critical change. So we'll have that discussion with the government or the MFE to seek an exemption. Something will probably have to come to the council for a decision on that, and then we'll finalise the plan change and the development of the engineering standards. The engineering standards are all but done. Within the next few weeks, they should be, the final draft should be finished, and then we'll be able to look at what further work we need to do on the plan change and get it going again. That's all I've got on for the next 12 months.
Just a minute.
I have a question. Just a quick question regarding the engineering standards. So, just so I get my head around it, obviously I'm being a little bit fucky. That means that we can come to council, we've got a design, show it to you, we get an engineering guide to go back and get our engineering correct to come into council to apply for consent. And we've combined the two together to speed it up.
They're not combined, but they're related.
Well, that's what, sorry, they do this sort of thing.
Kind of joined at the hip.
Yeah, okay, that's my understanding. Thank you. That was just clarifying. Thank you.
Thank you for this and for the updates, it's really appreciated. And I think it is quite good that that just shows us the next 12 months because, you know, it can get quite overwhelming. However, that said, personally, and this is just me speaking, I'd be quite keen to just have a less of a list of the stuff that's sitting in the background. I don't know how the rest of the committee feels about that, just so that we know that there is, we understand capacity and we understand prioritisation, but just so that we know what's coming up, but is that creating?
No, so Madam Chair, Andy has that in his back pocket.
Right, okay.
So the question is, do you want to go through that now or do you want to stop for lunch and then go through it? Because it's pages.
I'm quite happy with the format that's here and that when we go through things at each strategy community meeting, that we go through the priority list and then we just look at anything that any member maybe has an interest in.
Yep.
We can all look at it and probably understand from looking at it, you know, why it hasn't slipped into this.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I guess between now and May, I need to sit down with the team and Judith to really prioritise some of the things 12 months and beyond that. You know, a lot of it's the spatial plan work. You know, how much of a priority is that? Where we're going to, and then I can report perhaps back then. I'm open to suggestions on how.
As am I. I'd just be happy to see it sitting underneath with a separation, and then things might, you know, as time progresses, things might slide up as
yeah.
But,
I've got another
I'm happy to take
pages of-
direction from other members as well. And do members, you know, we've had.
It's not that I've seen so much this life, I know what's behind it.
Yeah. Do members feel the need for us to have lunch and come back and go through that, or are we happy that it just slides in? At the next time? Because I don't feel like we need to come back and look at it. And you have to trust the process really.
Like, I think, Pauline, what you're saying is, I mean, I'm happy that it sits with officers at the moment, but I guess in the main meeting, what you're suggesting is we've got these here. Sorry, I should have them open still. And there may be the longer list that's just there for information.
It's just there,
yeah. So
unless
I don't
anyone
think-
has a question about it.
Because if we look at it now, we're probably just haven't got the right.
Absolutely, yeah, I think, yeah.
And if I may, through the chair, some of the ones we've discussed over the next 12 months, 2 or 3 of them may have fallen off the list. Helga's extremely efficient. Yeah, so.
That sounds good. Are there any further questions then in regards to the work programme? Anything further to add? No.
Just through the chair, whether the format suits your purposes, there's not too much information, not enough. Do you want a different colour?
Fine, as presented.
It's giving us the information that we need, I think, yeah.
I don't need
I
colour.
will put through the chair from experience, when you get documents like Andrew's presented to us, the questions when put, he's carrying that in his head and his knowledge, we can ask at the time and experience it that way. Having a hard document as a reference for ourselves is good, but doesn't have to be tabled. That's what I would consider a sensible and efficient approach to council. How's that?
Okay, with that, thank you for your work today. Thank you for your discussion, your ideas, your questions. And with that, I will close the meeting at 12:50 p.m.
Big meetings.